What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast episode 242. Your weekly show covering all the biggest topics in gaming with industry, technical, and legal insight. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, joined as always by these lovely gentlemen you see before you. Mr. Rodriguez coming in with the, what do you got, Mario with bacon shirt there? What are we doing?
With the Ron Swanson.
Oh, all the bacon and eggs are Ron Swanson. That's beautiful, sir. Beautiful. How you doing this morning?
I'm here, so that's good. You know, I'm ready
Still
to
ticking?
talk about games that I haven't played for the most part. So that should be exciting.
Okay, yeah, we're preparing for your dissertation on Resident Evil 4, so I hope you're prepared to give that speech here shortly.
Yeah, I know very well.
And as always, the dapper looking yet very tired Mr. Tie Guy Travis. How you doing, brother?
Tired guy Travis this week, everyone. Yeah, I'm doing well, man. GDC and Diablo 4 and all the stuff I covered this week almost killed me, man. But I'm, IGN First is ending this week, and Diablo 4 piece, the second piece I'm doing comes out this week. So hopefully it'll slow down. But yeah, man, this week was nuts, crazy. So.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Well, we're going to talk about some of it, of course. So we are joined by some fine people in chat, as always. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. A couple kind of house cleaning items before we start. So we did get some feedback last week. Obviously, I had mic issues because my new desk setup wasn't done. Hopefully, I'm back proper here. Hopefully, everything is adjusted better. And we kind of tuned up everyone's volume to hopefully be better in sync than last week. Excuse me. Hogue doing well. He let us know that he had a family thing going on this morning. If you missed it, he did put up a new video yesterday. So if you're looking for that sweet Hogue content, you can check that out. And we're going to be talking about some of the things related to the CMA and Xbox's or Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard here shortly. And obviously, good information coming from Hogue there. So, but he's doing well, says hello to everyone, and, spending some time with the family this morning. So we don't think he's going to stop by, but you never know. You never know. Also want to shout out to our audio listeners. I hope last week's episode and kind of the new format while, taking a break here and there to do super chats rather than intermittently is a better format. And anyone who took a couple minutes to provide us a podcast review, whether on Apple or Spotify, greatly appreciated as well. So thank you very much. All right. With all that out of the way, guys, it's been a very good week for, I think, gaming and gaming news. In fact, I think we're kind of spoiled at this point. So we had PAX East going on. Simultaneously, we had GDC going on, which we're going to talk about both of those. A lot of new trailers and content from coming out of PAX East. A lot of good information from GDC. And Travis was fortunate enough to go over to GDC because it is local to you in San Francisco, my good sir. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about what we're currently playing. Obviously, Resident Evil 4 has come out, and early game of the year contender in terms of at least critically looking fantastic. Diablo 4 open beta, sadly about to go away until June, and I'm going to cry tomorrow just a little bit, but we'll talk through all of that. So, guys, what game do you want to start with in terms of currently playing? Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, which we'll get to, is no joke, Travis, only you could somehow manage this, that yesterday, as I'm scrolling through Twitter, I start to see posts about Sylvania. And I'm like, okay, someone is listening like to our podcast and fixing my feed or what have you. So we're going to talk about that too, because I saw pictures about Sylvania from PAX East because they have a booth there.
Hell yeah.
Funny enough, so,
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So what have you been playing, boys? Hit me.
Diablo
Can
4?
Travis talk about anything? Yeah.
I can talk about pretty much everything, actually.
What?
Yeah.
Hey.
All the GDC stuff I played, I think. Oh, there's one that's still not out, but all the other stuff I wrote about is out already. So yeah, it was very quick. I was basically going and seeing previews and then writing it the same day, and then the next day doing like VO and putting the video out the next day. So
Jeez,
rapid fire. It's cool though. We can talk about Diablo 4. We've all been playing that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I think you and I both, like we said last week, we're both kind of formally covering it. And we've both, I know, put a lot of time into it. We were just talking prior to going live. So I have this week is the same content as last week from Blizzard, but you can play all the classes now this week, which is nice. So they added the Druid and the Necromancer. I actually rolled a Druid, and I have a few friends who rolled Necromancers, and I love the Druid. They love the Necromancer. So it seems like, I don't know about you or what you're playing, but from kind of the people I'm playing with, really, there's people that love each class. And it seems like, at least, I mean, there's definitely, as there always is, right? Some of the classes are going to do more damage and more output, etc. Same way in D3, D2, etc. But I think what I've seen so far, and it's early, right? We don't know what endgame looks like, but it looks like all the classes are at least viable and fun to play. And that's really all you're kind of looking at this point in time.
At this point in time, so I've played all 5 classes. I think all of them are at max level at this point. So as of last night, and I will say, Druid and Barbarian can feel good eventually, but they're nowhere close to some of the other classes. Which
they take more work.
They take more work, and like they take longer. Like my playthrough with my Druid takes forever because you have to run toward everybody and you slap them as a bear. And then, eventually you get your abilities. And if you're a Necromancer, you literally just wait for your skeletons to distract every enemy on the battlefield. And then you throw a bone spear and it kills like 19 people. And then you just start exploding corpses. And so like my Necromancer playthrough, I think I got through that in like 6 hours to max level. You're just going throwing bone spears. So they definitely have some balancing stuff, but my opinion is that they should all feel closer to the Necromancer and the Rogue, which are by far the most powerful classes that in my opinion, at least those are the ones that I was able to get to the highest, because I don't think the playing as the Druid feels great when you're leveling up, whereas some of the other classes feel really good when you're leveling them up. But the good news is they all do feel pretty good when they're at max level, which I think is obviously important because we're going to spend most of our time at max level. But
max level in the beta.
Granted, level 25 is not the max level, but yeah, if the intro, the first act, takes like 4 times as long on the Druid as the Necromancer, I think that's probably not good. So yeah, my favorite class is the Rogue by far. She feels amazing. But yeah, I've had fun with it, man. Played through. I know I'm sick of Act 1. I'm sick of snow. Really, really sick of it. That story mission, man. The first time I played it, I thought it was good, and now I hate it. So I'm ready to not play Act 1. I'm hoping that the 2 months in between now and when I probably play the release version, the retail version. I don't know how early they're going to give it to people. It's Diablo, so I've got to imagine at least 2 weeks. But
hope.
Yeah, we'll see. It's live servers, so they might also do that thing where they give you early access, but then they delete your character after the 2 weeks, because they did that in some live service games where like, you're sorry, man, your characters are on this test server, this review server. We're gonna delete the server after the game comes out fully. I hope they don't do that. But yeah, I'm hoping that the time I have between now and then will make me not hate Act 1, because I'm really sick of Act 1 right now. 5 times. It was actually 6 times because I had a bug last week where my Barbarian got deleted, so I had to re-roll my Barbarian this weekend. It's
like Diablo 3. I've played the beginning of Diablo 3 so many times. I mean, I know almost every word that's spoken, and it's kind of how it goes. But
stuff where you have to start.
I have a few times. Yeah.
I hope they don't do that in Diablo 4. That I can't play a seasonal model where you have to start a new character every season. That just seems like a nightmare to me.
I think they are.
They are doing that in Diablo 4.
I think so. Yeah, they've talked a lot about They've talked a lot. There's a lot more that they've talked about beyond the beta on their site, because they were doing a quarterly blog where they would take like one key aspect of the game and give you a lot of detail about it. So they've already shown like a ton of what's going to happen in endgame. They've showed endgame loot. They've shown all these things. So if you're really interested in in some of that. You can find it on the Blizzard blog. I linked to some of it in my article because it's really interesting. But yeah, I've enjoyed the living hell out of it. I'm gonna miss it after this week. I already reinstalled Diablo 2 Resurrected a couple days ago and started a new character there to kind of tide me over. But it just feels so good to play. And it's kind of like we talked about last week. It's pretty much everything I was looking for from Diablo 4 for the most part. We've got to see how the late game is. But yeah, I'm pumped, man. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Dan, did you give it a try finally or no? You waiting?
Yeah, I played like 2 hours and I realized that I love Diablo, but the fact that I'm not going to be able to play it in a couple days is going to... I didn't want to get too far. You know, I kind of got to the point I was like, yeah, this is good. I played as Necromancer since 2 when they released it as a DLC, I think. If I remember correctly, it's been forever.
Necromancer was a DLC for 3.
Yeah, or for 3? Gosh,
oh, it might have been DLC for 2 as well. It's been a long time.
I swear.
Yeah, it was
2.
I think it was for both. It's kind of funny.
And it was great. It's I mean, it looks like to me it's Diablo 3, a lot of quality of life improvements. I had some problems getting into a few games here and there, but or getting into with the servers just queued up for a while. Short of that, I loved it, and I'm going to buy it, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to probably take a lot of my time once it does finally come out. So, but yeah, it was
ask
great.
a question about Diablo and your relationship with it.
Mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then it'll also pivot us into the next topic if I'm lucky here.
If you're lucky.
So I know you don't play horror games.
No.
And your definition of horror games seems extremely loose. Like the category of games you're not allowed to play because of your aversion to horror games is broader than I would describe the horror genre. How does Diablo not count as a horror game?
I don't like jump scares, so that's basically it. And like I can deal with creepiness and stuff like that. Like I got quite a ways into like Evil Within 2 before I was like, no, I'm checking out. You know, this is no good. You know, it was good to a point, and I think a game is still good. I just can't deal with jump scares. I don't like that anxiety of not knowing what's coming, you know, behind in first person games more so, I guess, than like a third person game, because you're kind of right there. And but yeah, no.
So Commander Carnage says no horror games, but you love BioShock. How's that work, Dan?
Yeah, well, that
has jump scares.
Yeah, but also that has one of the worst in the very that was Infinite. Was it BioShock Infinite, where you're like watching something and you turn around and one of those horn guys is right there and it's like dah, 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 and I'm like, wow, it scares me every time. But that was also back in the day where I wasn't such a giant puss, so. Now, I'm more worried, I'm more health conscious. So, I don't want to have a heart attack. That's basically it. Like, I don't think it's going to take much to push me over that edge, and I don't want to risk it. So,
it's funny you said that, Dan, because it only made me realize right now as we're talking that BioShock is now 16 years old, which is mind-boggling to me.
Long time ago.
That was even before I moved here to Kansas City. I was playing at my old house. Yeah,
that's
back
craziness.
east.
That is crazy.
Man.
I was in high school.
That's basically my thing.
Shut up, Travis. No one's asking.
I was in high school. It was great. I just gotten done reading Ayn Rand too. Like I read like The Fountainhead, and I was getting really into Ayn Rand.
You just got done reading Green Eggs and Ham. Is that what you said?
As all high schoolers do. I read The Fountainhead when I was in 2007 or whenever it was.
Worse.
Yeah.
Good.
So I think
as we.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think so. A couple of people have asked me questions like in the written chat here. And for whatever reason, when we started the podcast, my keyboard has stopped working. So I apologize. I can't type any responses and I'm not getting up to unplug it and plug it back in right now. So just letting you know, I'm not ignoring you. I just literally can't type. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. All right. So Resident Evil 4, guys. So Dan, you're obviously not playing it. Although to Travis's point that we were saying before we started, RE4, at least for me so far, and Travis, you can speak more to it because this, as I said before, is one of my big gaming gaps. I never finished RE4 when it released. I played it on GameCube when it launched. Didn't get super far and never touched it again. So this game is extremely new to me. But you can already tell that this is a much more action-focused Resident Evil. And a lot of ammo, a lot of enemies. And I don't know. It might be, if you can play it on PS Plus a year from now or some easy, cheap way to try it, Dan, you may want to at least give it a shot to see how far you get.
How does it compare to 2 in that respect? I couldn't really handle 2.
Way less of a horror game than 2.
It seems much less of a horror game than 2.
Have you ever played Resident Evil 5, where you're basically
G.I. is that the one where you're in like a weird camp somewhere?
That's the co-op one. Like 5 was where there was
co-op one in Africa.
Yeah. I played that one, I think.
Yeah, so it basically 5 led into that. A lot of people don't like 5. I think those people hate 5.
5 was fine.
I like 5. But 4 is a supremely better game. And it is sort of the transitionary game from Resident Evil being a strictly puzzle solving horror game to being more of an action game where it was about, shooting mechanics and killing bosses and stuff like that. And I don't know if there are any jump scares in that game. If they are, they're so minor. It's an action game posing as a horror game. That's my opinion on it. And then Resident Evil 5 went, okay, we're not even going to pose as a horror game anymore. We're just going full action, and people didn't like that. But I do. I like that game. 6 is my favorite Resident Evil. Stop it. G-Man, I know you're lying. Don't. Shut up. Just shut up. I can't listen to you.
Are you playing the new one yet?
I am. Yeah. So unlike you, I played the piss out of Resident Evil 4. I beat that game on the GameCube, and then I beat it when it came to, I think, OG Xbox, and it had like exclusive content on PS3 and original Xbox. PS3?
PS2, I think.
PS2 and original Xbox. And I think I managed to play it on both of those consoles somehow, because I remember using the new weapons, and then it's got New Game Plus where you get to keep all your old weapons, and it adds new weapons into the sandbox. And so I played that multiple times. And then it came out on the Wii where you could have a fake gun that you point at the screen to shoot. So obviously I had to replay it then. And then it came to Xbox 360, I think on Games with Gold, or what was that program they had where they took old games and they put them on the 360? It was like, there was a specific branding for it. So obviously I bought it again on the 360 and played it yet again. I've played that game to death. And so for me, Resident Evil Remake is awesome because it's a better version of that game, and it is very different. Like it's different enough to where it still obviously is essentially the same game, but it feels way different than any of the other remasters and upgrades and re-releases they've done in the past. So obviously I had to have it. To me, though, it'll never be Game of the Year. It was already Game of the Year, actually, that year. So to me, not really a contender, but it is a fantastic game. One of the best horror action adventure games ever. And I'm looking forward to very slowly getting my way through that game again. Or maybe it won't be slow. Maybe I'll pick it up and I'll be like, oh yeah, I can beat this in 3 hours. Because I feel like I low-key became a speedrunner on that game. I've played it so many times. But yeah, I hear this one's got some interesting new stuff. And I read a Steam review, the guy complaining that you can't look up Ashley's skirt anymore. So yeah, apparently it's a whole different ball game out there, kids, if you were wondering.
That's literally all I've seen on this thing. Like somebody tweeted out, like somebody on a Reddit post that was upset about that.
Yeah, basically, you could try to look up Ashley's skirt in the main game, but if you did, she would go, "Hey, pervert!" She'd like call you out on it. And I think in this game, they just took out the ability to do it altogether. And some people are bizarrely very upset about that. So yeah, that Reddit post was eye-opening.
I don't think any of them are watching this show, but yeah, there's people out there, that's for sure.
I thought that was your main kind of audience. at season.
Yeah.
I
I
hope
feel like
not.
there's like other avenues if you really are into that kind of stuff. You don't have to play Resident Evil 4 or any money actually, and then probably find what you need somewhere. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really impressed with it so far. I like the fact that it is. I don't mind the more action oriented Resident Evils. I don't take Resident Evil seriously. I don't look to Resident Evil as being like my really dark horror game. Like it's just not that to me. It's fighting zombies with a bunch of ridiculous stories, and so I'm enjoying it so far. I'm still pretty early, but playing it on PS5, liking the DualSense for it, and yeah, enjoying the hell of it. It is stunningly gorgeous. Like that RE engine just continues to just amaze. And now this is, talking about Capcom in general. If you think about Capcom recently, right? So Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, both in the 90s and meta, they've sold, I think, over 10 million copies, something like that, something ridiculous. You've got Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise, which are crushing it for Capcom. RE4 now 93 open critic rating on this game. And then you've got Street Fighter 6 coming, which is supposedly, from the early playtests we've seen, phenomenal. So Capcom just seems to be crushing it on all fronts. It's really cool to see. And yeah, man, I think this will be up there in the conversation, though. It's one hell of a year for big games. So, this might get lost by the time the later year comes around. But I mean, RE2 is nominated, despite being a remake too. So who knows?
Yeah, I understand some people's kind of eagerness to nominate remakes as game of the year, but it certainly doesn't work in my philosophy. But my philosophy isn't the only one. As you guys know, my philosophy is not just about quality of game, but also about pushing the industry forward, which I feel remakes kind of explicitly don't do. But that's that's just me. People love these games, and Resident Evil 4. I feel like Resident Evil 2 people didn't even like. Resident Evil 4 people love this game. People say it's like their favorite game ever.
You're too young. Resident Evil 2 was a phenomenon when it released, dude.
No. Comparatively, it was not. Comparatively, Resident Evil 4 was like huge, dude. Like it won Game of the Year everywhere.
You're too young.
No, I was alive when Resident Evil 2 was around.
You were alive, but you weren't mature enough to understand its impact, is what I'm saying.
No,
gosh,
that's not fair.
Where's the verses?
Yeah, I'm not. That's not fair, Ains. I remember for one, Resident Evil, the games industry as a whole was way smaller when Resident Evil 2 was out.
Fair. And I agree with you that 4 was like took over the industry. Like it was it was a game. So I'm agreeing with you, but I wouldn't make your point by downplaying RE2. 1 and 2 were huge. 3, people forget that game happened. 3 was kind of let down. They were 2, but I feel like 4 was sort of like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, where it you can like Morrowind all you want, but everybody knows that Oblivion is when people actually started playing Elder Scrolls. That's right. That's kind of the way I view it. Is it was like it's not a perfect analogy, but I'll agree with you to a qualified agreement here. It made it for everyone, right? It made it for the vast majority of people. Bigger audience, yes. Or maybe 4 is Skyrim and Resident Evil 2 is Oblivion. You could go that route if you want, but my point is that there's certain games that kind of like hit at a different level, and even if they're not my favorite in the Resident in that franchise, you have to admit that like they were the breakout game, right? Like they just appealed to this large group of people. So some people feel that way about like Ocarina of Time, right? Like that game made everybody play Zelda, but the people who are like the true, OG Zelda fans look at that and go, that's not really my Zelda, right? Like, why isn't it top down? So hashtag not my Zelda. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, but like Resident Evil 4, it happens to be my favorite one. So I can't be a hipster on this one, unfortunately, because I think it is the best Resident Evil game. Yeah. You think it's the best Resident Evil game? Okay. All right. Yeah. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better one, actually. I'm willing to go through it with you on each of them, but 1 and 2. Well, I've got to finish it first. Yeah. Oh, right. You haven't played it. Yeah. I don't know what I would pick as my favorite Resident Evil right now. I think 2 is definitely up there, especially with
like
the quality of the remake. But from everything we're hearing, right, the quality of this remake is at that same level. And to your point, 4 was kind of beloved. I think 2 and 4 are the, like, if you took a huge poll of all the RE fans, I think 2 and 4 are going to come out on top.
I think 4 would come out on top, and it wouldn't be very close.
I think there's the split between the people who prefer action horror and survival horror.
Correct. 100%. But I think action horror is a much larger group of people.
Probably.
I'm not saying quality or whatever. Like, that's obviously preferential, but I think that it's like the people who like Call of Duty versus people who like, indie puzzle games. Like, there's just more people on the Call of Duty side, like, regardless of how you feel. So I think Resident Evil 4 would win just because it has more broad appeal, and the Resident Evil 2 type game is still kind of a niche, even though it was a huge phenomenon. So
yeah. Shout out Lexi, Code Veronica for the win. I love Code Veronica.
Code Veronica is great. Yeah.
Love that
Heck,
game.
I like Umbrella Chronicles for the original Wii. Remember
All
that
right,
game?
calm down. Okay, we were having a good conversation.
Come on, that game
you
is
didn't have
hilarious.
to go crazy.
You know what that game is good for, Ames? It's good for giving it as a summary of the Resident Evil franchise to somebody who hasn't played any of the games, because you kind of go through all of them, and it kind of, you have to fill in some gaps yourself, but yeah, it's hilarious.
Well, and trying to make sense of all the Resident Evils as one cohesive unit is a near impossible task anyway. It's just a ridiculous series of events and stories.
Story. It's an insane story. Resident Evil 6 really upped the psychoticness of that. So much so that I feel like they have to contain all their games to one specific location, because Resident Evil 6 made the world of Resident Evil so just balls to the wall insane that now they can't really show the rest of the world. They're just like, yeah, there was a giant zombie dinosaur that turned into a giant zombie fly. I don't know, man. Like, let's just focus on one small house for Resident Evil 7, and then we'll allow ourselves one small village for Resident Evil 8, because we can't talk about the larger world. It now doesn't make any sense. So good for them. Good for them.
Yeah. I feel like RE6 has a spokesperson, but Hogue won't kind of tell us how much he was paid to be so.
For sure.
It'll come out one day in legal documents, I'm sure. Shout out to Vintage Willow giving 10 memberships over at the HoegLaw channel. Thank you very much. Appreciate the support of Hoeg's channel while he's hanging out.
Christopher Jetzer, by the way, in the comments.
Yep.
Resident Evil Revelations, super underrated games.
I've heard amazing things about those games. I haven't played them.
If you do play them, you have to play them co-op, preferably split screen, because those games, they play on having 2 players and one character being able to do one thing. Like, usually there's like, my recollection is there's like multiple storylines, and you'll be like, one player plays a little girl with no powers, but she can see invisible zombies, and then the other person has a gun, can't see the zombies, and so you have to work together to be like, he's over there, shoot him there. And it's super cool. So highly recommend Resident Evil Revelations. Super underrated games.
Nice.
They also did a episodic model for, I think, the second one, maybe for both, but definitely the second one, and which I thought was a really good format for Resident Evil, because those games feel really good in chapters, in episodes, and I feel like they really could have benefited from that in some of their other games, but I don't know. They went back to the old model. I really liked them as episodes.
What's your personal thought about when they went to first person for 7 and 8? What do you think about that now that you're playing 4 again, which goes obviously back to third person?
I don't mind too much. To me, the defining characteristic of a Resident Evil game was never the third person perspective. I think the defining aspect was kind of lost already when they went Resident Evil 4 and went over the shoulder kind of action packed rather than fixed camera angles and stuff from Resident Evil 1. So, yeah, for me, Resident Evil has always evolved and just decided it was going to be whatever it felt like being at the time, whether it's a arcade shooter with a plastic gun or a tank controlled puzzle game. And so You know, I generally tend to just be on the side of let's try things new and not hold ourselves to what we did in the past. And I think Resident Evil has shown an incredible propensity for evolving itself as a franchise, which I really admire. So
yeah, I mean, it's been I started to say something, and then we got Hogue in the chat. Good morning, sir. He said, agreed, Resident Evil 4 is when the series lost its identity.
yeah, classic. I mean, sure.
You're gonna make him
Hogue,
pop on. That's what's gonna happen.
And
You're
that's
like,
the goal.
we need to back to the house.
This is the Hogue summoning circle. Is I just
Yeah.
talk about how great RE4 is until he shows up. Yeah, I mean, this is why Hogue and I fight so often, because he is a curmudgeon. He thinks that, you know, however a game was, it should always be that way, and if it isn't, then they're betraying, you know, the thing he loved. And I hold nothing sacred. I just say, hey, look, that game was good at that point in time. It's okay if we don't keep remaking that game over and over again. Let's try new things. So Hogue and I end up fighting a lot because he is you know, he likes his old thing, and I say let it die. Let's build something new. Let's do something better. That's what I say.
Well, not always better, man. Come on.
It's true. Yeah.
No, it's not always better, but there's no progress without risk. Without trying new things, then you're gonna you basically you guarantee your own extinction if you refuse to evolve. And I think like some franchises are really good at doing that. Like, you can't keep making Elder Scrolls Morrowind, you know, every couple years and expect that.
Oh man, that would have been awesome.
I mean, look, we like that game, Ains, but you know, you have to figure out how you exist in the
of course,
the next iteration for you. And I feel like you don't get a Skyrim, and some people, myself included, prefer a Morrowind to a Skyrim in that specific example. But I think that you don't get there, and you don't get to see what's next without making fundamental changes eventually. And I think a tank controlled puzzle game in this day and age probably wouldn't fare well. So
no.
Yeah.
Hogue doubled down, by the way, just now and said RE4 is wildly overrated. But there you go.
But that notwithstanding, it's not a part of the same series the first three were. I mean, it's kind of in the title, Hogue, that you are demonstrably incorrect, since it's called Resident Evil 4. It's called Resident Evil 4. So,
well, it actually opens by saying this is 6 years after the events of, you know, what Leon went through in Raccoon City. So.
Yeah, so I would say that opening is pretty damning for your claim that it's not part of the same series. But you know, I get what you're saying. You don't feel like it is, and I would say, you know, more power to you, buddy. Go off. I will never keep Hogue from making an argument that makes me look smarter. And miss you, buddy.
Oh my God. I love one of my favorite aspects of this show is just being able to host and have you two go back and forth, because what's often most funny about it is I see both sides, and I usually find myself sitting in the middle. So I'm always popcorn ready, man. I love it because I agree with you that I think that developers, we've had this conversation a lot of times, right? Like, from an artistic perspective, developers need to have the freedom and hopefully the funding and capability, right? The support to experiment and do new things and take a franchise in a new direction and kind of learn from. I think we get some of the best games in this industry when a developer is willing to look at what other developers are doing well and implement that in some of their franchises. I would point out Elden Ring as a prime example of that. Mm-hmm. It kind of took inspiration from a lot of games, including, oh God, I'm going to say it out loud, Breath of the Wild, in you know, the way that it took the Soul series, and look what it created, right? One of the greatest games that we've seen in recent times, I would argue. Pretty agreed upon widely. And I think that's true of many of the kind of biggest games or most recognized, celebrated games that we've seen. Now, I would also agree with the fact that there's a lot of times where people, or developers, I should say, take a franchise that's beloved, make changes to it and somehow completely go the wrong direction, i.e. Resident Evil 6. But you know, they also can learn from mistakes. So.
Yeah, you try new things, and I think we have seen what happens when you try to take a just inherently creative industry and a creative group of people, and you put them in a box and you say, just make Halos forever, right? We've seen what happens when you do that.
You watch it, all right?
Hey,
I was on your
actually,
side. Don't make me turn.
Hey, I was actually referring more to Bungie, right? Which is that like creative people, they have an interest in like the uncharted frontiers. Like nobody wants to just be told, hey, you're this company and you make widgets, right? That's all you do. You churn out widgets. Yeah. You're in a factory assembly line. That doesn't really cope with the kind of creative sensibilities of the games industry. And I think if you liked an old game that a company made, or if they've always made a certain type of game, good for you. Those games will continue to exist, but they're not going to get any better if they just keep doing the same thing. And so I'm always for people trying new stuff. And admittedly, often that means they make bad things. Oh well, right?
Yes.
That's how you sometimes you have to take a couple steps back to take steps forward. That's how I feel. Also, we have people in the comments finding out that Hogue likes Resident Evil 6 more than Village. It's very funny to see the reaction.
Finding out for the first time. And so our circle of candles has worked.
Oh, has it?
It has worked. Here we go. Good morning, sir. How we doing?
Oh, yes, it worked. Nice to
yes. Okay, but I can only take so much of this.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Let's go.
How we doing, brother?
But Travis trying to convince me that if the developers want to make a match 3 game and put a number on it, I have to take it, is not going to work.
Let's hear Hogue. Let's hear it. Come on. What are you saying? What's going on?
Oh boy, good to see you, dude. How you doing?
I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know how long I'm going to stay. I really just came directly off the road onto this show.
Because Travis was frustrating you. I get it.
Did you turn around from where you were going?
I'll check out what you guys are saying. And there's Travis spouting off.
Oh.
Yes, no, I think Travis correctly articulated one of our fundamental problems, which is that I think that series should dance with the one that brung them and continue along the evolutionary line that they started rather than spinning off into completely different types of games. Travis has no problem with this.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. And that's something that comes up a lot. Now, to your point that it's not part of the same series because they kill off Umbrella Corp, I would argue Umbrella Corp getting killed off in the stock market is maybe the most realistic thing that's ever happened in the Resident Evil franchise. Because my God, how did that company stay alive as long as it did, given all of its safety oversights? Let's call it.
I'm just saying that the transition between we're going to take out Umbrella, which is a great ending to Resident Evil 2, directly to Umbrella died off screen. Sorry about that, bro. Here, fight a Napoleonic robot, man, is not perhaps gaming's finest moment.
What about Resident Evil 3? Didn't it do the same thing?
Resident Evil 3 just repeated some of the plot points from Resident Evil 2. It's simultaneous to Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, 3 is pretty much it was almost like an expansion. It kind of just continued what 2 was doing. It didn't not continued, but in parallel. 3 is like the ODST of Halo. You know what I mean? It's like that side story that happened over here.
But they called it 3.
And that's why it is not remembered as fondly as, you know, the others. Yeah.
No, and everybody loves 4, but that was definitely the moment where I said, "Oh, this is where I separate from the crowd on this," because 4, in my opinion, has never ever been as good as people have said it is. But that's okay. People can like what they like. Reasonable minds can differ on this stuff. But not only is it not intellectually as compelling as 1, 2, 3, and Veronica, it's also, I don't think, as good action-wise as people seem to give it credit for. It's always been a little bit of a tank shooter as it stands. It just is from a different perspective.
But what was so different about Resident Evil 4? It didn't feel like the same game because it's got a lot of the same bones. You're fighting zombies. You have shooting that I would argue, even for the time, was not great, right?
Yeah.
Single stick, and it was sort of a little tanky even then. And it's got puzzle solving. It's got all the stuff you did in the old Resident Evil game. So fundamentally, I love that Ains and Dan are just going off camera,
You just opted out.
letting us have our tryst.
No, I'm literally, while you're talking, I'm fixing my keyboard.
No,
I'm here.
Well, I just don't understand fundamentally how it was such a betrayal, because to me it felt like the natural kind of next step in that franchise.
Veronica's the natural step for Resident Evil. I mean, that was the evolutionary line. Resident Evil 4 is a different type of game. It's much more focused on action. It is not scary at all, in my opinion.
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
So I think that was a piece of the DNA that was removed from Resident Evil in Resident Evil 4. But I love Resident Evil 2. It's my favorite Resident Evil, and it was not an evolution of that. I don't think Veronica was.
Very well. Well, yeah. I mean, you leave some people behind when you evolve the franchise, and I think the feedback they got from Resident Evil 4 was, yes, good, more of this.
Yes.
And kind of, I think the departure is for a lot of people with 5 and 6, where I would say 5 was the game where they kind of just did away with horror altogether. 6 probably.
Well,
I don't know
the
if you could
decision
do
to add
it.
a buddy to Resident Evil as an experience is just a poor one. That's not smart. And so
because it takes away the.
Yeah, well, it takes away everything. It takes away the finer survival horror elements, but it also takes away the fear. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like we're saying, it's a different type of game. And it's funny you say that, Hogue, because I know we've had this conversation before too, but how you describe RE4 for you is how I felt when Final Fantasy VII came out. One of the most, it's very beloved, a lot of people's favorite game, but to me, it just wasn't what Final Fantasy was to me. It was too much of a departure, and for me, Final Fantasy VII has always been kind of overrated because of that.
Breath of the Wild 2 is another one that you kind of have trouble with.
Breath of the Wild as well. Yes. I was like, how do you know about 2? I don't know.
Oh, Breath of the Wild as well.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild didn't. Yeah, and I'm not a gigantic Zelda fan, but I grew up obviously playing the Zelda games, and yeah, Breath of the Wild just didn't. And I know I'm not alone. Obviously, Breath of the Wild is a wildly celebrated game, but I do. There are other Zelda fans who feel the same about Breath of the Wild. There's no dungeons. There's no. It just doesn't feel fundamentally like the Zelda games that we grew up with.
It lacks a lot of the Zelda juice, whatever that is. I think a lot of people like the game on its own merits, and you don't, which is fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's perfectly fair, right? I mean, again, we're talking about Final Fantasy VII, Breath of the Wild, and Resident Evil 4, which are 3, whether you like them or not, 3 of the most critically rated or celebrated games of all time. I mean, they're way up there. So, but yeah, I'm curious as I go through this game to see where I land, because again, I really liked Village, and we've talked about this jokingly, right? But like 7 and Village are very different experiences. And I really enjoy both of them. I can recognize their differences, but I like, I really love both those games. I don't know.
I like Biohazard a lot. Village is not good.
What is so different about those two games? Because to me, they seem like kind of a Me Too of each other. Like,
oh no,
7.
Village is a theme park with no semblance of reality at all, and Biohazard is trying to be a kind of Saw game where you're in the bayou and it's as real as we can make it while being pursued by fungus monsters.
How is that real at all, though? Fungus monsters aren't real.
The place is real. The freaking village is just a series of theme park attractions. There's nothing remotely organic about that setup.
See, to me, Resident Evil 7 feels like that same format. You go to Area A, there's bad thing happening there with bad boss you clearly have to kill, and it's kind of its own themed section of the park, and then once you kill the thing, then you go back to the main hub, and then you start heading off to the next theme park, right? Like, it's kind of the same idea. It's just one is a house and one is a village.
Well, I mean, I think that you can go from degrees of difference there, right? I tend to agree that facing off against any one of the family members gives it its own theme, and you have to deal with that, and it is pretty separate in a similar way to Village. Village then takes the idea of, oh, we're going to get attacked by an old lady or flies, and extends that to a giant woman and then dolls and just random shit from Twilight Zones from 50 years ago. Enjoy.
See, to me, you just described like basically a very small difference between 7 and 8.
Difference in in kind of degree of craziness can make a complete difference in tone for any piece of media.
I think tone's probably the right word there. The tone of Village and the tone of 7 are very different.
Village is goofy.
Village is goofy. And I don't mind that in my Resident Evil.
What's goofier than Village by a lot, though, is Resident Evil 6. Indefensibly so. It is way goofier. You fight a giant zombie dinosaur, Hogue, that turns into a giant zombie fly, and then you get him shot by lightning bolts that come from orbital bombardments. I mean, if you're talking about goofy, if that's your bar, how the heck do you think 6 is better? How the heck? I'm so confused by that.
I think 6, first of all, I think it's important for people that haven't played 6 to understand that 6 has essentially 4 campaigns, some of which are different in tone to each other, and that there are goofier campaigns within 6 than there are in other ones. When you're talking about Village, you've got the one goofy campaign you get to go on, and that's what you get. You get an allegory about birth in a dollhouse, which is just all over the top. It's all heck. You get, like I said, a giant woman that turns into a dragon in the first part of that game. And 6 only ever tells kind of a Michael Bay bombastic, weird army kind of movie, which I agree doesn't flow from 5, certainly, and doesn't flow from 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. But I find that to be more enjoyable than Village and its small world of horrors.
Very well. I'll never understand the preference there, but I have to accept it, I guess, at this point.
Yeah,
I like Biohazard so much that Village was just a slap in the face to me. But that's okay.
I think it's funny that we come back to this all the time. It's one of those standout things.
Well, we are talking about Resident Evil. It's not like it came
out of course. Of course. Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm obviously over the next week or two, I'll be playing a heck of a lot of Resident Evil 4, and I want to see where this one stacks up for me. Coming in, I think it's almost nice to be coming in entirely fresh here, right? I don't have the context of what Resident Evil 4 was at the time or what the experience was. This is going to be a new story to me, coming off of really 7, 8, and 2 remake. So could be interesting. By the way, I put a poll up on the Season Gaming channel. Obviously we are co-broadcasting or simulcasting as always, but I put a poll up to let us know which one you like more, Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 4. Well, let's see what the community says there. Also, quick shout out to Just BKZ, for gifting 10 memberships over at the HoegLaw channel. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, 2 was such a massive game when it came out. And
yeah, that's what I was trying to tell Travis earlier, Hogue. Like it was
I know it was massive, but it was
I don't think you know how massive it was.
I do. I just know that Resident Evil 4 was more massive. Like
no, Resident Evil 4 was a GameCube exclusive. Resident Evil 2 was way more popular at the time than 4 was.
That's a good point. I forgot.
It was a GameCube exclusive for a small period of time.
Not a small. I mean, when you're living
it came to PS2 and original Xbox, like I think a year later, maybe less.
It was a year. Yep.
Yeah. So
I did forget that point actually, because that Resident Evil 2 came out at kind of peak PlayStation 1 hype, where at that point PlayStation 1 had taken over the conversation.
Multiple discs, demo discs on previous games. Yeah, I mean Resident Evil 2 was a zeitgeist moment.
Yep. I was waiting tables at the time.
Resident Evil 4. So it was Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was game of the year. The games industry was much bigger. There were way more players, and then the fact that it came to all 3 consoles eventually probably had a larger reach than Resident Evil 2 ever could have. The PS2, original Xbox, GameCube, all of those audiences versus the PS1 audience. So I'm sure we could look it up, and I know
I don't know.
But you're talking about bodies, but I mean bodies don't make kind of the cultural moment. I don't think. Resident Evil 2 was a big freaking deal. Resident Evil 4 on its release was not.
You certainly need lots of bodies to have a cultural moment. I mean, that's part of it, right?
Necessary but not sufficient.
Yeah, it's just kind of percentages. I mean, it's,
I think you guys are underestimating how big of a deal Resident Evil 4 was, and I say that knowing how big of a deal Resident Evil 2 was. I honestly think 4 was Yeah, it was like their like Skyrim. It was their evolution that made it have broad appeal and made it more palatable to lots of people who don't like tank controls or, you know, really terrible voice acting and all the stuff that was sort of known for in the early games. So hey man, I love those games, but come on, they have bad voice acting.
Well, I mean, you're taking like Resident Evil in 2020 or something with its memification. Really, nobody was talking about Jill sandwiches when Resident Evil 1 came out, honestly.
But hey, What a Mansion was always poorly voice acted, right? Like everybody thought that.
I just think there's a difference in kind of growing up time period, Travis. I mean, like that wasn't the case at the time. Resident Evil was not leagues worse than the other games we were playing at the time.
Oh yeah, no, I remember. I played those games too, and they all had bad voice acting, but that was sort of something we all agreed to overlook. We knew it was bad.
Yeah, well,
at least I did.
You say bad, I tend to say like overdone anime dubs is how I used to think about video games.
Cheesy, cheesy is a good word.
It was cheesy, yeah.
Well, the intro to Resident Evil is fully on board with the cheesiness. I mean, that was one of my favorite intros of the PlayStation era.
It's like a B movie.
Yeah, with like the fire coming in and changing the shots of the various full motion video actors that you never see again.
Yep, exactly.
That intro, man.
All right. Let's see here. So big shout out to co-counsel in the house. She said, thanks for being here, everyone. Even those of you who aren't entirely 100% sure what's happening. I always learn something, even if it's not totally my
She didn't know I was coming on today. So there you go. She's being very nice.
Oh, did you? Oh, co-counsel's going to get you. Take care of yourself over there. All right. Hogue. Since Dan's playing like one game, and
I'm playing two games.
We've talked about Diablo and Resident Evil. Any game you've been playing you want to talk about?
Diablo? Resident Evil? No. I, for the most part, am still getting the left hand and arm up to speed, so I'm not playing much of anything that's action-oriented. I've been going through older games or kind of lesser-known games in both of the ecosystems, PlayStation and Microsoft, to find kind of things that I can play on a more turn-based basis. And I found one called Legend of the Keepers that I've been enjoying, where you're like the boss monster of a dungeon. But what else have I been playing?
Boss Monster's a great board game, by the way.
I have Boss Monster. Yeah,
it's a great game.
Let's see, what else have I been playing? I've been playing Wolfson, because Diablo was setting off action RPG once, and so Wolfson came to consoles. It's pretty good. It's not Diablo 4. I have to warn you there in terms of money and polish and everything else, but it's good.
Have you played Diablo 4? Are you enjoying it?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I played last week.
Cool. What class?
I played both Rogue and Barbarian. My brother played Sorcerer and is looking forward to trying Druid. But we had like a 47-minute queue that then broke on Friday.
Yeah.
Classic.
And then I was out of town.
Yeah.
But no, Diablo 4 is going to sell 1 billion. I mean, it's a great game.
Yeah, I think I was having this conversation with an Xbox show I was on a while ago when they asked me what's going to sell more. They were having an internal debate, Starfield or Diablo, and I said Diablo, and they were all shocked. And I'm like, I think people underestimate how big Diablo's audience is. They sell tens and tens of millions of units, and of course there's factors like Game Pass and other things that won't come into play, right? And Diablo being on all platforms, etc. But I think in general, people who don't play Diablo or are into Diablo don't really realize how big of a game Diablo is.
Well, Diablo 4, I think, is just so impressive right from the get-go, and it's going to be very, very popular.
Yes, 100%. 100%. All right, let's get our first round of super chats out of the way here, because obviously some relate to Hogue while he's here, and then if you don't mind, Hogue, I obviously don't want to. I don't know how long you plan to hang out with us today, but we were going to talk about CMA's provisional findings, which I know you already
mentioned that. That's why I wanted to try to pop on. That's why I was even checking on what you all were talking about.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's hit these super chats up, guys, and then we'll get to it. Jeremy Morton actually came in before we even started.
9:59, which, to be fair, is probably still like 7 minutes.
Good 10 minutes before we started.
Yeah. The real question: how does it compare to Resident Evil 6?
Well, I feel like we've we kind of tackled that by
covered
this
that.
point.
Yes, we have.
You forgot the emoji, by the way, Travis.
Thinking face.
Thinking face.
Hey.
Ponderous persona.
So I'm glad we got to that. Jeremy, thank you so much for the support. Appreciate you very much. Googleman.
Yeah, with €5. Currently trying to figure out how to get my grabby hands on Have a Nice Death. Might have to cave and get a Nintendo Switch Lite. I've never heard of that. So
I've seen some chatter about this, but I have no idea what it actually is. Have a Nice Death. Has anyone seen this, talked about it?
Yeah.
It's one where
I know
you're
this.
death and an accountant or something like that, right?
Correct. Yeah, you're death working in an office, and I haven't played it. It's on my list though.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out.
I
Right
guess
after
out of the random
Sylvania.
Nintendo games, I did get one called like Paranormal Sight, I think, and the 7 Legends of Hojo, something along those lines, that I've been playing with the family. They love murder.
Okay, they love murder.
They do.
Love
My
it.
daughters love murder mysteries.
They're planning yours.
What is happening here?
Google, man, thank you. Kern Grisdale in the house.
Yeah, with the $4.99 pound or
Pound.
$4
Yep.
and 99 pounds. Yeah, okay. I played the open beta because of you guys. While I enjoyed it, I now know it's not for me, which is great. That would
Perfectly
be
fine.
Diablo. Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly fine. That's one of the
what
nice
demos are
things
useful
about open
for.
betas, right?
And because of your comment, we now know you are a cop.
Karen, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Travis, be prepared, my
There you
friend.
go.
Chris
Uh-oh,
Mullen is here.
emojis.
Yeah. Hey, Travis.
Okay. Hey Travis, tie guy, and then a colon. Okay, so this is a story. If you are a ghost, a robot, or a cat, you should hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. But if you do speak about games and roll the dice on technology, it'll make you smile.
I think the
Upside-
dice is just board games.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that could
Console, board, and
could
PC,
also-
right?
But if you do speak about games, video games, board games, or computer games, it'll make you smile until you turn your life upside down. Right?
Well played, man. Chris, thank you. Marianne Williams with the $20 super sticker over on Hoeg's channel. Thank you, Mary, for the support. You've been a weekly super sticker super chatter, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Marianne.
Nice.
Amazing meta in the house.
Yes, with the $20 super chat, just stop by to say hi. I am at work today, so or just so they can let me go, then off to the next site. All right, Travis.
Okay. Celebratory, what are those things called? Confetti balls, a party popper, a human dying of hypothermia, and there's the cloud with snow that is, I guess, the accomplice or perhaps the murderer.
I think they're just cold. I don't know that there's a murder.
No, there's a murder. There's a murder. He's cold. He's dying, and somebody's happy about it because there's a celebration going on. So yeah, somebody's happy about somebody dying of hypothermia. Another person is surfboarding in the sun, and they work as a construction worker in Hawaii.
There you go.
I love it.
I
I would
maybe
have
it's-
said that they're celebrating, but they're cold, and so they're going to go to a warmer place for vacation. You made a whole murder mystery out of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting interpretation.
And
It's
I
kind
was
of a
going
glass
your line,
half
Travis,
full.
where the murderer left to go to a tropical island and celebrate after they murdered the person.
Yeah, because here's the thing, Hogue. Here's where your theory falls apart. If they're going to a tropical place, why are they working as a construction worker? They got a job on vacation? That seems a little sus.
They have to blend in.
I think they're on the run, and now they're working a job where they don't need to show.
I think that's the actual person. I think we can use the context of the message as well. They're done with work and off to the next site. So right now they're happy because they're done. They're cold, and the next site is in warmer climes.
I see. I see. Okay.
That's fair.
See, I
will
admit, Hogue, I didn't read the comment at all. I just looked at the emojis because that's my role here. But that is a good point. Yeah. Okay. So they were cold, and now they're off to a warmer site to do their job as a construction worker. Amazing meta. Thank you. my father was also a construction worker, so mad respect.
Meta, thank you very much. And Walt in the house, Mr. Iron
Yeah,
King.
with the $10. Hogue, it's great to see you on here. We love you, brother. Also, I said it before, but Diablo 4 is crazy fun, and Grim Dawn is a wonderful tie-over until Diablo 4's release.
Grim Dawn's fun. Path of Exile's fun. A lot of good ARPGs out there.
Yeah,
True.
Yeah, good stuff. We were talking about Grim Dawn the other day, and he was recommending it to me as a holdover. So
Grim Dawn,
Good game.
You know what else?
yeah, and it's on sale right now. It's on all platforms, and it's on sale. At least on Steam, it is.
It's great on
pretty
deck.
cheap. So yeah, exactly. So it's like $6 for like the regular game without the expansion. So I may check it out. Yeah. So
No, MLB released the early access too this week. So I don't know, Hogue, if you are big into baseball and or the show.
I have enjoyed the show in the past.
It might be something that you are able to play. It's not very, intensive, I guess, as far as with the hand thing. You know what I mean? I started playing it on Friday. It's the same. So
it's 22.
Yeah. So if you maybe just get that one if you got it already. So,
got a couple more to get to here. Jose Rivera in the house.
yeah, with the $9.99 super chat. Travis was spot on with his D2 review. The story is so embarrassing that I'm actually happy to pay to not run it on my alts.
So this isn't this no D2
I know he means
Destiny 2. So the problem with what he's saying though is that he was so unimpressed with Lightfall that he actually paid $20 twice to skip the story on his alts. I.e., he rewarded Bungie for their terrible storytelling skills by paying them an extra $40 to not play the game.
That's what
we just run around looking for a radial array now. That's just what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never heard radial array more than in the Lightfall campaign.
Radial array. Oh God.
Terrible. Sorry that you had to do that, Jose. Pay an extra $40, but I guess I don't really blame you because that campaign's hard to get through. So,
wow. Jose, thank you. And Mr. Badbit in the house, host of the Trophy Room and co-host of Cast Co-op.
Yeah, and Joe comes in with, I got an easy one for Travis. Luke Lore sucks.
Peaches.
No, he's actually saying Luke Lore sucks peaches, which that's nice. That's nice. Thanks for saying that about Luke, Joe. That sounds sweet. Everybody likes fruit.
Pleasant.
What is that?
Everybody likes fruit. All right, Joe. Thank you, sir. All right. So, and shout out to Lethal String over on Hoeg's Law for gifting 5 memberships. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So this week we got an actual update on Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. CMA published its provisional findings relating to the console gaming market. It's worth pointing out, as you did, obviously, Hogue, this does not have anything to do with the review of the cloud gaming market, which they have said they will publish the results by late April. But on the console gaming market, their statement, and then I'll hand it off to you, Hogue, because you're much better speaking about this than me. Their actual statement was the CMA inquiry group has updated its provisional findings and reached the provisional conclusion that overall, the transaction will not result in a substantial lessening of competition in relation to console gaming in the UK. And so, as you can imagine, there are all kinds of commentary around this, but essentially it seems like the CMA in their second round of review has kind of understood the broader picture here and updated their provisional findings to say, okay, outside of Call of Duty becoming exclusive, which they don't think it will, there's really no concern about damaging the console gaming market in the UK.
Yeah, so this was basically a math fight. So the way that Microsoft submitted the way they evaluate the value of Call of Duty players suggested to them, and this is what they reported to the CMA and the EC and the FTC, all the regulators across the world, is that it doesn't make sense for them to pull Call of Duty from PlayStation because it makes so much damn money over there that it would cost them more than they could possibly make in Game Pass. And then the CMA did their own math for their provisional findings, and Microsoft submitted at the start of this month a fairly aggressively worded letter that said your math is stupid to the CMA, because the CMA was taking their lifetime value of a player that plays Call of Duty, which is based around a 5-year kind of averaging, and comparing it to the loss in sales that PlayStation would realize over the course of a single year. And so what Microsoft told the CMA was, look, you're comparing 5 years of profits to 1 year of losses. And yeah, of course, profits looks like it makes more money when you take 5 years of it. And so the CMA said, well, our math is fine, but we've got a lot more information now. And oh, by the way, we're changing our math because Microsoft seems to have the right of it on this particular question. And so there's a lot of hand waving in what is a 17-page apologia from them that says this is what phase 2 is supposed to do. We're supposed to re-examine our premises, etc. But also, even though Microsoft has submitted the same kind of information that they've submitted for the past 6 months, we're looking at it now in a new light because it does look like if Microsoft pulls Call of Duty, that they're going to lose billions of dollars. Billions is the word that the CMA uses. And in every practical way that we can look at this, it's always billions of dollars. So now we don't think they're going to pull Call of Duty, which is what, of course, Microsoft has said for a year now. And the CMA says, and if they're not going to pull Call of Duty, everything else that we have said about their prior actions and the way we feel about Microsoft really isn't that important because there's no company crazy enough to actually do this under this current math. So in a kind of rarity, you've got a regulator who doesn't fully admit to it because they're still a political body, reversing course. And one of the things I say in my video that I put up yesterday is, while it's annoying, and I get people being annoyed by this whole process, you should never be upset about judgment bodies going and examining the premises again and saying, you know what, we were wrong.
Exactly.
We want to encourage that kind of behavior. Yep. And so they were wrong. Now, I personally think cloud gaming is actually more specious than the console gaming market insofar as while you can't show the losses, you also can't show the gains. So I really don't think that the CMA is going to wind up being the hurdle that many thought they would be when they first came out with their provisional findings, because the console gaming one was a much higher hurdle to clear than cloud gaming, in my opinion. Now, in the same breath, I would say cloud gaming is so nascent and so unknown that they can basically say whatever they want. If they want to decide to try to block the deal based only on that market, they could, but it's even more kind of ephemeral than talking about console gaming or any of the other things that are more concrete that there's actually a proven market for. Microsoft doesn't make hay from cloud gaming sales. It's not what they focus their energy on. And there isn't really proof that there's a market that can survive that consumers really want to participate solely in cloud gaming as against libraries and console and performance and everything else. So this was a big win for Microsoft in the long term, but it's still unclear what that means overall for when the deal will close and what they want to do with the FTC. And one of the things I mentioned in my video is that Microsoft's lawyer has told the FTC and the judge in the administrative court that they're willing to close over an FTC action still pending. But while people sent that to me as proof that they would, it's a rhetorical device. I don't want to tell you to never believe lawyers, but when you're in a litigation or conflict setting, you say things that are useful in the moment, and it may or may not be the case that happens down the line. So Microsoft has said to the FTC, hey, we're going to close if we get EC and CMA approval. And that's useful to tell the FTC to fish or cut bait, right? Get over this if you're not going to do something serious. But if you are, let's do this the right way and go to federal court. That's useful to tell the FTC that when it may or may not be the case. And you don't know exactly what you're going to do as a company until you're actually faced with the circumstances. So it may be that Microsoft closes over an FTC action. It would be a rarity for a relatively conservative multinational corporation to do that, but it's possible. And yes, people have asked me as well, does that suggest that if Microsoft were to close over that, they don't think the FTC can win? Yes, that would be a strong indication that Microsoft does not believe the FTC has a leg to stand on, which, as I've said in a number of videos, I don't think they do. But will the FTC change course regardless of what Europe does? I can't promise anything like that because these are people making decisions. Everybody wants to look at this like, well, their logic would be broken if that happens. And we saw also this past week, the gamer lawsuit was kicked out of court in California. So
it's not logical.
Everybody's asking me, the FTC, aren't they going to re-examine what they're looking at and reflect? And I say, maybe. I don't know. Do you know anybody in your life that just says, hell or high water, we're doing this? Because that could be what's happening at the FTC. And it doesn't have to be. But I can't make promises on that. And any lawyer or analyst that tells you they can is not telling you the whole truth.
Yeah, I saw some people commenting that now that the CMA has published these findings, the FTC will change course. And one of the big things I took away from your video, right, is that that is not true. Is the FTC will still do whatever the FTC is going to decide to do.
Yeah, there's not an X then Y. There's a lot of logic there, but there's nothing.
There's no if then
statement. Yeah.
They should, but yeah, the FTC is.
They should never have brought it. But I mean, like that's you know, that's where people come at me in my DMs and tell me you were wrong, Rick. And I said, no, I told you they should never have brought it, and I kept my percentages with a percentage allowing for them to bring it because I know that they are presenting to the world that they have some beef to finish off with some of the tech companies.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were able to jump in today because, as always, your insight on these things. I actually watched your video this morning to make sure that I could speak to it from your words, in case you couldn't make it. But it's great to have you here to provide the insight and the clarity because, as has been the case since the beginning of this announcement, a lot of people talking about it, very few who actually know what to expect and what the details are. So always great to have you in that space.
Well, it's pretty rare to see a regulator, even in phase 2, say that first part, that was completely wrong. We're going in a different direction now. That's pretty rare. And yeah, they have a number of pages at the front. If you go and you read this for yourself, I don't recommend it unless you're tired and you want to sleep. But there's a couple of pages at the front that are basically like, this is what phase 2 is all about. That's why we say preliminary all the time. It's like, okay, CMA, sure.
Yeah, they were kind of patting themselves on the back a little bit from what I got from your video of, hey, look what we did. We fixed ourselves. But hey, I would also agree with you, though, that as you said a few moments ago, that, hey, at the end of the day, this is what you want regulators to do, is to take the time to get it right. And if they, whether or not they did out of the gate, the fact that they've seemingly gotten it right, per se, quotes right, is what you would hope.
Yeah, so. I mean, their current model and what they say in this addendum is much closer, I think, to what the four of us would agree is the actual dynamic in the console video game space than what a lot of these regulators have been operating under for a couple of months now. So, I mean, I think that's right to people that know what we're looking at. And unfortunately, regulators, we have regulators for all of industry, right? So they're going to be talking about video game consoles now. They have to go figure out how the wheat market works in some various area in order to make that finding. So you get these regulators that don't necessarily know everything that's happening in a given market, which is obvious to those of us that follow the market, but not so obvious to people that are coming in and parachuting in and trying to decide these things. So yes, I always want to say, don't lock adjudicative bodies into bad decisions by being, ridiculous online or otherwise. You want them to do this. You want this 180-degree turn because you want them to be able to do it and not have political capital lost for making those changes.
Yeah. So I don't usually call it super chats, but Mr. Badbit, host of the Trophy Room, our friend here, just posted a $2 super chat that said, "Does this get Sony closer to signing the deal?" And I assume he's referring to the 10-year deal, right? Much
like I can't predict the FTC, I can't predict Sony. I said when they rejected it publicly a month or two ago that was a bet they were making, that they would get at least as good of a deal from the regulatory process than what Microsoft was offering them. So that bet is continuing, and yet it looks like it's a losing bet more and more as we continue forward. So yes, it gets them closer insofar as if they wanted it all, they'll be more inclined to do it today than they were yesterday. But we don't know. Sony has said loud and clear to all the regulators that there are landmines in the economics of the deal that we don't know because that's all redacted for our viewing.
Sure.
And so that could still be the case. Sony could just be presenting. We don't know. So does it get them closer? Yes. Does it mean they sign? Can't promise that at all.
Yeah.
Very fair. Very fair. And then just a quick...
For those who are wondering, the signing that we're referring to is Sony signing a deal to bring Call of Duty to the PlayStation platform post-acquisition by Microsoft, which they've signed with just about every other body under the sun at this point.
And many you've never heard of. Yes.
Yeah. Which is interesting. Obviously, clearly there's some posturing that's happening on Microsoft's part. But they were unhappy with that original offer, and I think their tantrum here hasn't really worked well for them. So it's interesting.
No, and I think that was the one thing I said late last year was that this was unexpected from Sony because it doesn't make a lot of long-term strategic sense to me, right? Because you're seeing already some of the things that are happening, which is like, well, okay, are you really a 2 console maker market? Well, then we've got problems with a lot of the percentages across various jurisdictions in the world. Sony, you look like a monopolist if it's just you and Microsoft in a number of places. Sony doesn't want that. No, we just meant that for the deal, not now.
Right.
Yeah. It's bad for them.
In Japan.
Yeah, the position that they're creating, it looks bad long term because they're, next time they try to acquire something, these same arguments are going to be used against them. Well, you said it's a 2 console market, and now you're trying to acquire a company to become even bigger in Japan, where you're already a monopoly, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's some issues there, but also it burns the capital with the people that you are sort of fighting against unduly. Like there's a lot of companies that want to become bigger who are going to look at Sony as the type of company that tries to stop this from happening, even though they are one of those companies. And then also the bridges they're burning with Activision, I can't even imagine. Imagine if the deal didn't go through, of how burned that bridge would be between Activision and Sony. I mean, they would still get Call of Duty on PlayStation, but I don't think the future partnerships would really be a thing anymore.
There'd be animosity, but I always say business finds a way, right? Jurassic Park style. Sure. If there's money to be made and PlayStation still has the biggest market, Activision will suck it up and deal with Sony, even if they don't like it. So I think Sony knows that. They're not worried about that particular bridge. But yeah, I have certainly felt worse about Sony and their arguments since they started making them in earnest in really November of last year. I don't mind Sony coming out and just saying, this could cause a problem for us. We make a lot of money from these particular items and, do what you will, regulators. When they change over to the deal must be blocked or the gaming industry is doomed, that's when I shift over and say, okay, so you went too far there. And now Sony is, considering its life choices.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't there, I haven't caught all the details here, but wasn't there a representative in the U.S. that came out and made a statement around kind of Sony's monopolized?
Yes, so we're currently negotiating a trade agreement with Japan. And our representative came out and said, well, Japan, you need to do something about Sony because my understanding is they have 98% of the market and you allow them to monopolize. And I think I tweeted out, I don't know what math gets you to 98%. But what people told me was that if you take Nintendo out, which is the craziest thing ever in terms of determining the Japanese video game market.
Sure.
But if you take Nintendo out, Xbox is so small that Sony has 98%. It's like, yeah, but it's useless information. That's a useless statistic. If I take Nintendo out of the Japanese video game market, I don't have a reasonable look at the Japanese video game market anymore.
Very true. Very true.
It is Sony's own argument, though.
Well, Sony didn't. So what Sony has done this entire time is echo the things it likes about what regulators say. So the CMA and the FTC took Nintendo out, and Sony said, yeah, great idea. Good idea, guys. They didn't forward that to begin with.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in Brazil, which was one of the first people to move publicly on this, there's a whole section about how Nintendo is an important data point because they have more than survived without Call of Duty. And then I think the CMA is made aware, if you look at the timing of those, that they have to do something about Nintendo. So they just have a series of kind of non sequitur paragraphs about how Nintendo is different. And of course, all of the consoles are different. They all brand differentiate, right? If I told you, hey, I want to play a cinematic third-person over-the-shoulder action adventure, you'd know exactly which console.
Nintendo. Yeah,
yes,
Switch.
That's right. You know exactly which console to send me to, and Travis would take me to Nintendo. This is what you get at GameStop some days, folks. but yeah, if I said, I want to play a racing game or a shooting game, chances are you'd send me to Xbox. I mean, it's differentiation all the way down. Yeah. If you have one in back, sure, give it to me. Yeah. And that's what the PlayStation VR 2 is. That's what Kinect was. That's what Game Pass is. That's what Labo is. They're always looking for different ways to differentiate their markets. Sure. But
Labo. Oof.
Wow. Labo.
I love my Labo, gentlemen.
Did not see that coming on 3/26/23. This morning.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Good clarity there, and obviously we will wait to see what's next from the FTC and the broader arrangement here. One thing that I was playing Diablo the other night, talking with some friends, and one thing that kind of did just strike me in the moment for whatever reason is, you know, it's obviously very likely that, you know, by later this year or sometime in the very near future, that Diablo, Starfield, Call of Duty, Halo, all the games that I'm generally looking at and playing are all going to be Xbox first party. And that was just kind of a weird moment when I sat back and thought about that. Oh, and Overwatch 2 as well, because I was looking at the most played games on Xbox Live. Overwatch 2 is like 9th or 10th or something. And I was like, good God, man, it is it's kind of crazy to think about. If you've been with Xbox, you know, I was a huge OG Xbox guy when it first came out in Halo and all that. And if you think about where they're about to be sitting in the marketplace in terms of IP ownership, it's pretty wild.
Well, and you hope they don't go to rot there, right? Like that's the risk. Microsoft is
Agree.
Terribly efficient at getting products out to market. And so I want them to succeed. People keep asking me about this. And it's like, oh, you're an Xbox fan. I was like, no, actually, I play mostly on PlayStation. But I have no problem with them buying these companies. I just want to make sure that they succeed. But it's not the job of the regulators or the government to say, oh, maybe you suck at making video games. We don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't.
If they did,
The industry should be hopeful that they don't.
Yeah, and if they did, if regulators did look into that, Microsoft would be in trouble.
Spot on delivery, sir. I think we've talked about that though as a group before, right? Like even me, who loves the Halos, loves the Forzas, I love most of Xbox's franchise. If you take a step back and look at how they've curated their portfolio over the past several years, there's been a lot of mistakes. And a lot of concern.
So many of
and
their
I
new
think
companies haven't released anything that wasn't really close to completion.
Yeah, we're still waiting, right? We haven't Hellblade 2. We got a little teaser from GDC. We still haven't seen Avowed. Perfect Dark is apparently in development hell. We know what happened with Halo. We've talked about that extensively. State of Decay 3. Who knows when that's coming? We still haven't seen anything out of
Thieves is crushing it right now, for the record.
You always say that, but I mean,
they had a decade plus of Rare, right? It's not like they've been using them to their maximal extent.
Yeah, that game's 5 years old now too. Like it's not like it just came
crushing
out.
it.
And they're coming out with new content to celebrate 5 years.
Hey, hold on. So is State of Decay 2, to be fair. They're releasing a huge update here in a month.
To what?
It's going to change.
State of Decay 2.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think games are happening a little differently. Like they're updating games that are super successful, and they've come out with games in the past, couple years that have been super highly praised, but their pipeline just has issues. And their biggest titles that everybody are really excited about, their new IPs, are taking forever. So
that's why you buy the bigger pipeline.
Exactly. Exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
But how many developers do you need to release a game per quarter? We'll find out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm starting.
Dan and I have been talking about that since this podcast started.
That's what we've always wanted, was that cadence. Yeah. But the farther we go into it, it seems like the less chance of that happening, especially given, just how games are developed now. I think.
Yeah.
They just take a lot longer. But even then, I mean, you've got 24 studios, so I guess if you wanted to hit,
I think
it's tough.
They'll have 30 something after Activision, right?
I think it's 32.
I think they're realizing it's a numbers game, because I've been watching this 32-part documentary on YouTube. Have you guys seen this? The Psychonauts 2 documentary.
I have. I'm only on episode 3.
Yeah, so I'm like at the end of that. I've just been watching it, while on jogs and stuff, and I think the one thing I've learned from that is that and obviously Double Fine is probably an extreme example of this, but
I was going to say, if it's anything like Broken Age, there's only so much Tim Schafer managing people I can take.
Well, I love Tim Schafer, so shame on you.
But he's a talented dude, but management is not the same as creativity.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well, you should watch the documentary, because
I watched the Broken Age one.
It's interesting to see what happens when you get an actual game manager into a studio like Double Fine, and it ends up not working out, which is kind of hilarious. But I guess the thing I've learned from watching that documentary is just how chaotic and alchemical the creative process of making a video game is. And I think trying to fit that into a box of you will ship creative thing and it will be good in Q2 of 2020 fiscal year 2024. I don't think that formula really works with game creation. And I think if it can, if you set up a very specific set of rules and boundaries, and you say you will make a Call of Duty every 3 years, and then you'll have these 2 other studios that help you do it. I think the most you can do is really provide resources and tools and try to keep people on track. But I think Microsoft has learned the hard way what happens when you force a game out, and also what happens when you give a studio too much slack, and then they kind of just continually disappoint you, or the project gets off track. So hopefully they're learning a lot, but I think some of it is numbers, right? If you want a game to come out every quarter to hit your Xbox Game Pass subscription model, I think you have to have a lot of studios working on a lot of stuff, lots of coals in the fire. So
yeah, and there's a lot of management that goes into that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, project management is a real skill.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it a lot before, but it certainly seems like Xbox and maybe Phil Spencer, maybe people above him, I don't know, have wanted to take a softer hand than maybe was necessary for some of the new people coming into the school, right? And so I do think they're hopefully gonna slowly figure out who needs that heavier guidance, who needs the softer hand, and get better at it. But yeah, I think you're right that apparently 24 developers isn't enough. We need 37 or whatever it's going to be, and maybe it winds up with 50. The problem is that that's a lot of eggs in one basket if they just completely overturn.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
I think they're buying the studio that is known for, or some of them that's known for really predictable cadences, and then also Blizzard, which is known for the exact opposite.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Blizzard will
Right.
just burn a game to the ground if they don't like it when it's done.
yeah,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
probably a good idea. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, they mostly kept their high quality kind of Q score, even though obviously the problems at Activision, so many of them originate at Blizzard, that people have reacted to that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they
But
have player confidence for that reason. That's for sure.
They do, yeah. And we've had this conversation before, and we've gotten some feedback like, kind of angry that it feels like we're being critical of Xbox. And I said, well, we are. It's not that I don't want Xbox to succeed. I love Xbox. They're my favorite franchises that they have. But you need to be critical of them. Delivery is important, and it's clear, like we've talked about, that they've had problems with delivery, no matter how you slice it. I mean, exactly what we're talking about, and you said heavier hand, Hogue. I mean, I hate to bring it full circle as I always do, but I mean, Halo Infinite's the perfect example. This is your franchise, studio, and IP, and you seemingly didn't know the realistic shape that game was in prior to release. I don't know how that happens. I legitimately, from a leadership perspective, don't know how that happens.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
That was one of the biggest misses of the last decade. I mean, that was printed on the box as a launch game for the Xbox. I mean, this was their keystone entry, and it was a year late. And then realistically, it got a lot of the features that were supposed to be in the game a year after that. So it wasn't close. It wasn't remotely
Can't even
close.
argue with you. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, how do you not realize that? But anyway, we've harped on that enough in the past. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. So I want to jump over to GDC. So I've got a lot of game announcements from this week that have come out due to GDC and PAX, which we'll touch on. But Travis, I wanted to throw it over to you just to hear from you around GDC itself. Any thoughts? I, as someone who's kind of loved the gaming industry, not just video games, but the industry and kind of the tech behind it since I was a kid. GDC I always love because you get so many kind of cool, not just stories, but you get so much cool information about how games are made, engine developments, insight into the process. And I think that I just love GDC for that. I've been watching stuff all week. I was watching the new NVIDIA presentation on path tracing that's coming to Cyberpunk and what that is and why it's called full ray tracing, just learning all these things and the ins and outs of it is great. So I know you got to be part of GDC this week, kind of covered a little bit. How'd that go? What are your thoughts? Anything kind of jump out to you?
Yeah. So first, for those who don't know what GDC is, GDC is the Game Developer Conference.
And
it is.
Thank you for that, Travis. I keep forgetting that some people watching may not be as clued in as I am speaking.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So whereas other trade shows are like PAX, for example, which is going on for at the exact same time. PAX stands for something, but it doesn't matter. But basically those
Penny Arcade has entered the chat.
Yeah. Penny Arcade. No, the conference matters. I'm saying what it stands for doesn't matter. It doesn't help you understand.
It's literally
what it is.
Penny Arcade Exposition.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. It doesn't help explain what it is. So my point is, those sorts of conferences are sort of for the fans, and they're fan facing, and they have booths, and people kind of come and check out the game, and it's a way for developers to interact with their community. Game Developer Conference and previously E3, before it started to have a public facing branch, are showcases more for the actual developers themselves. And so Game Developer Conference is my favorite because it's game developers interacting with each other and showing off their tech, and it's sort of a showcasing of how the industry is evolving and how our tools are getting better and how we're able to do more with this medium, and it's super exciting stuff. And so the show floor is less here's my game and here's a demo, and it's more like tech and sharing secrets and tips and
tiny
also
stuff.
that and then also
my favorite
kind
GDC
of,
stuff is like, here is how we got water to ripple on waves.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
45 minutes long.
Yeah, and it's game developers giving TED Talks about stuff that they excel at as well. And then other developers going like, all right, I got to see that. We got the guy from, Red Dead Redemption 2 talking about, open world, skyboxes and stuff like that. So
when it was last year, wasn't it at GDC where I was telling you I was watching your friend give the Weird West GDC talk on how to handle interactive dialogue in a mission, which was just eye-opening, right? The things that you don't think about if you're not actually making the games.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, and then also we the developers get to hang out, which is cool. So like I went to like a Ubisoft party afterward and got to see people from all over the industry and different developers and lots of Ubisoft employees I haven't seen in a while. So it was cool to also just connect with people IRL and hang out in downtown SF and my favorite place with my favorite people, favorite industry. Really cool stuff. And then also people kept inviting me to their hotel rooms to show me demos of stuff. Yeah, this is not a...
Were any of them the Cosby Suite, Travis?
Yeah, it was the Cosby Suite. Yeah, it was. I had a 3 a.m. with Weinstein Gaming. So really good demo there. So the hotel room meetings are basically a way for game developers who are at GDC to show their stuff to journalists, because a lot of the journalistic outlets like GameSpot and IGN are SF headquartered. And so you go to their hotel room and they'll have like a version of their game up and running, and they'll just be like, hey, we want to show you this. And then some will let you write about it or even capture gameplay. And so I did that. People showed me demos and I got to capture some of it. And so you could see some of my footage and game previews for this already, because a lot of them were like, hey, you can publish this whenever. So I published it like as soon as possible. One of those games is I wanted to bring up because it's one of Hoeg's favorite developers, Toys for Bob. Toys for Bob showed me their upcoming Crash Bandicoot game. Called Crash Team Rumble, and it is it's a 4v4 multiplayer kind of party game. It kind of reminds me of like a Mario Kart or a Smash Bros type of experience. It's very silly and over the top. You can see my preview on IGN.com or YouTube. And I got to go and see stuff like that, and some of the stuff I'm still waiting to talk about. But it was a super cool week. And it was also kind of the first major trade show post-COVID, because the games industry has been very slow to come back in-person events after COVID. And this was the first time where I was like seeing people I hadn't seen in super long. And I was like, wow, look how COVID changed you. You got a new haircut. You got fat. Like, look at all these people. It's great. So yeah, it was a good time. Good time was had by all. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I haven't had the pleasure of going to GDC in person. I hope to one year.
You should.
Especially then I could revisit San Fran, hang out with you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I have
with
to
me.
do that for sure.
You got a guest room if you need it.
Yeah.
Saving that hotel
Yeah.
fare.
I'm not demoing anything at 3 a.m. I'll tell you that much.
You say that, but GDC has a way of seducing you. You never know.
Wow.
Well, that's awesome. We got so between GDC and PAX, there were a lot of things kind of shown this week. A lot of it is kind of tech related, so I don't want to call out all of those. You can kind of find them, but some updates on new games we can talk through. Which is well, first, like I told you, I wanted to mention Sylvania because it was kind of hilarious that I started seeing posts about this after we talked about it last week. So for those who may have missed this last week, give the quick spiel of this game again, Travis. Sylvania.
All right, so Sylvania is a Castlevania type game where you play Dracula, and you've been forcibly put into a dating game show, and all of your powers have been taken away. So like every Castlevania game, you have to go through levels and get your powers back, and then getting certain abilities gives you access to other areas of the castle. It is straight up a Castlevania game. But interspersed in that are dating mechanics because you are in a dating show. And so you meet different characters, you build social links with them, and then you have to choose which characters you want to vote off of the show. And then you steadily get closer to choosing your one true bachelor or bachelorette, because you can be a female or male Dracula. Yeah, that's the game. It's a super unique idea. And I learned about this because my fiance is obsessed with dating sims, and she played this game and to completion. And I think I was working on the Destiny review at that time, so I wrote a review behind her while she played it, and I just sort of absorbed this game through osmosis, and it was hilarious. So I decided to bring it up apropos of nothing last week, and then I told Ains that he should play it because I dislike him greatly and I want to see him suffer. And now you have an update?
I have not played it. I have not. No. Between RE4 launching and Diablo having its final beta this weekend, I haven't. I will. I'll make a pledge right here, right now, that I will download this game and play it before next week's show. I don't know why I'm saying that out loud, but
You're an idiot.
So I will at least try it before next week's show.
I mean, when you go through and you're trolling through the Xbox and the PlayStation libraries, you see a lot of this kind of stuff. Sylvania looks high quality, so I think it'll be fine, Ains.
Better than I expected. The Castlevania part of it is certainly not on par with a good Metroid game, but it's good enough. And then the dating sim part of it is really high quality. Like, they really worked on it. It's fully voice acted, which is pretty rare in dating sims.
Haven't you ever wondered what Dracula and Cthulhu would look like together, Ains?
See, Hogue gets it. Hogue and I are somehow bedfellows on this issue. Yeah.
Well, the Mummy's artistic direction is a bit much for me. I know that from the trailer, but
yeah, it's a little BDSM. She's wrapped in mummy stuff dangling from the ceiling.
Funny enough, Tal says I should stream it for charity, so I do stream on occasion. With the new setup here, that would kind of be perfect. So I'll check it out on Steam. Maybe I'll do a stream of it this week.
Somebody brought up the pumpkin lady. There's a witch who has a pumpkin head and then also 2 huge pumpkin titties. So
that is not exactly how I would have said it, but yes.
Yeah. If you just ever wanted to bang like a pumpkin patch, this is the game for you. All
right, downloading
also, now. Fun fact: pumpkin patch is my safe word.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Things we didn't need to know on season 8.
So as soon as I show up for that guest room, I'm gonna say pumpkin patch.
Pumpkin patch.
It's all activated. Things will go back into the wall, and it's all good.
I know. What is going on in here?
That fact definitely came in handy at my 3 a.m. hotel room appointments. So good times. Good times. Brought it full circle.
My goodness. All right. I'll take a look this week. Maybe I'll even stream it just for the hell of it to have some laughs. So stay tuned for that. I'll post
it looks
about
like a decent quality. It's not like a complete junk game.
All right. Let's see here. So Hogue, I know you said you're gonna be hopping out here shortly. So why don't we do this last round of super chats, because there is another question on the CMA piece too before we get through the rest of the games that I want to talk to. So let's go ahead and knock these out.
Yeah. Sandra Ramirez, the $2 super chat. So happy to see you live, Hogue.
Smiley face.
With-
Oh, that's
There
a
you go.
smiley emoticon. I'm not sure if I'm reading emoticons as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, smiley
You
face.
got it. You got it. Thank you,
got it.
Sandra. Midnight Dreary always with the support with the $3 super sticker. So thank you, Dreary.
Nice.
Appreciate you. And then Sante in the house, good friend over at the Gaming Circle podcast, has a question for you to add on to Mr. Badbit's question.
Yes, if Sony doesn't sign any contracts before the deal closes, what does that mean for them and what they get on their platform?
Okay, so legally, it means that they would not be guaranteed to have Call of Duty on their platform, right? Because these are 10-year guarantees for access to the platform. But realistically, politically, to the extent that the CMA and the EC and the FTC sign off on the deal on the notion that everything's going to be hunky-dory and there's not going to be a foreclosure of Call of Duty, Xbox is unlikely to wind that back just because they might have legal documentary space. So Sony's also playing that game at the same time, right? Microsoft is unlikely to just do the exact opposite of what they're telling these regulators they have the incentive to do on moment one. And so chances are the world proceeds apace with respect to playing Call of Duty on your platform of choice. That would be my best guess.
There you go. Thank you, Hogue. Sante, hope you're doing well, brother. Thank you for the super chat.
Man, Katie Cotton with the $10 super chat. Does anyone know if there are more D4 connects or disconnects? I'm sorry, on PS4 or PC. I disconnect almost every time I take a TP on PS4. What is TP? Toilet paper?
Yeah, every time I take
toilet paper.
Yes.
Take a poop.
Okay, that's all I know.
It's a very specific way of playing Diablo.
Yeah.
Very, very specific. Is it worth switching to PC or waiting to release?
So I played last week on PC and I played this weekend on Xbox. And it's weird. Like I have had 0 disconnects this weekend. I only had 1 last weekend. So platform doesn't seem to matter. The friends I'm playing with, I've had some friends who have gotten disconnected several times. And then I have other friends like me who haven't gotten disconnected at all. So
I've had 0 issues. I'm on Xbox though.
Okay. So yeah, I haven't had
PS5.
issues on either. But Travis,
I've had more disconnects on PC. Xbox has this thing where if you leave it idle, it will stay in game without booting you for an ungodly amount of time, and that is not true on PC or PlayStation. So if you're the type of person who leaves it idle for whatever reason, I think it's just a software thing, like Xbox just leaves the game in a standing state, so you will get kicked out, in my experience, way more often on PlayStation. And a little bit more on PC, I think. But yeah, I've played it on all the platforms at this point. So, and it's got
This happens when you fall asleep, Travis?
I have not been falling asleep in Diablo 4, actually. This game is really
That's funny. I've fallen asleep playing Diablo 4 and I thought of you. So I guess I'm wrong.
That's funny. So yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that I'm in work mode when I'm doing this since I'm on the review. But yeah, the gameplay is a lot more engaging than I would say Diablo 3 was for me. But yeah.
But you're right about the idle, because I stood in town and I had to run out and I had to run an errand. Came back like an hour later and I was still standing there on Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, we entered the queue on Friday night and then watched the latest Picard and then came back and it was ready on the front screen. So it wasn't even checking to see if we were like pushing buttons.
Oh. It does kick you eventually, but I think it's like 2 hours on Xbox, and on PlayStation
it has to be a long
15
time.
minutes. At PlayStation, for whatever reason, they just like, nah, get out of here. And I think that's a platform choice.
Katie Cotton said TP, by the way, is Town Portal. I don't know where we went to toilet paper. You know, it makes more sense.
Town Portal, sure.
So Katie, hopefully that
it still means the same thing, right? Like Time Portal's the toilet.
Yeah.
Or
the Diablo toilet.
Are you going to the toilet in the 2 seconds it takes to do a Town Portal now?
That's pretty good.
We're gonna move on from that piece. Nicholas.
Yes, a lawyer always tells a truth.
All I'm saying is in a litigation setting, there are reasons to say things that maybe don't exactly line up with the truth value of the matter asserted.
Truth value. Interesting worldview there. I will say this, Nicholas. That's not always true. Some lawyers lie.
Nicholas, thank you for the super chat. Big shout out to Marianne Williams, who also super chat $20 over on the Season Gaming channel. So she did $20 on both channels. That's very generous,
Doubling up.
Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
That's my
And
wife's name.
there you
Somehow
go.
Williams.
And Hargate Chani with the $5 super chat.
Yeah, great to see you live again, Hogue. Great week for gaming. Redfall previews, Resident Evil 4, Diablo beta, GDC, PAX East, and oh yeah, that CMA thing.
You're not kidding, man.
We're having fun.
A
Yeah,
lot of stuff
it's pretty great right now. Can't argue with that for sure. Thank you, Hargeet. And Mr. Pompa in the house.
Yeah, Pampa. Romaine Sylvania, you say? You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Jack-o'-lantern with 2 big melons.
I was gonna say that's pumpkin melons. I got that one.
Yeah.
Pumpkin melons.
That's right.
Melons.
Jack-o'-lantern with
A
2
better
big
word
melons.
than what you used previously.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's more
I
funny.
know.
So I'll just say this, guys. If you think I was being crass, Google it. Google
Play the
Romance
game.
Sylvania pumpkin character.
I'm gonna
You
play.
will
I'm gonna do
see-
it on stream. I'm gonna do
you
it
will
live.
see it- Yeah. So Ains, you save yourself for marriage, but everyone else, Google it, and you will see that I was not being crass at all. I was simply being descriptive. That is it. Like I was
Stop. You're
describing.
both right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to change my Twitter handle, I think.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Hogue, do you want? What do you
I think I will pop away now. And as I mentioned, I did put up a video yesterday about the CMA because this is a big deal on the road to Microsoft and Activision. So do check out that video. I'm actually re-rendering it right now to upload it with a higher volume because I tried to get rid of a buzz and I was too aggressive as I want to do. And so people got mad at the volume level.
It was
So-
super low, yeah, but
Yes, it was super low. I agree. And so I'm re-rendering it with a higher gain right now behind the scenes. So I will be re-uploading it soon. Check that out. And then I am also planning on doing a video on my stroke and rehab or multiple videos in a series that I've asked for questions in the community post there. If you have any questions that you think I can answer, let me know and I will try to add it to the list and help organize what that video will ultimately wind up being sometime in the next month.
it's awesome.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Thank
man.
you
Well,
guys for having me.
always.
Sorry for not liking Resident Evil 4 as much as the rest of the video gaming.
I'm glad you picked up on the Travis bait today, man. Good to see you live as always. And
I hear it. When Travis is doing that kind of thing, I hear it.
Good.
And then I come over to the Bitcast and there he is.
There's the Hogue summoning circle works, and I said this last week when you weren't here, but the gloves are off again. You got your grace period. You got one episode where I wasn't super aggressive, and that was it. You got one episode. Now I hate you again. So
That's
Welcome
A-okay.
yeah.
Love it. All right, gentlemen.
All right, we'll be in touch,
It is,
sir. We'll
brother.
talk to you soon. All right, we got to go to the gold frame. Come on,
Oh, for
we
God's
got
sakes.
to.
Yeah, no, I think after that appearance, he deserves it. So let's put it up there.
Wow.
Fair enough. So a lot of game news. I just wanted to touch on kind of each of these. So now that we're past Romansylvania, so we got this week. We did get the story trailer for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, coming April 28th, which is only a month away now. Which means review period probably less than 3 weeks out. Travis, probably 2 weeks, right? 2.5
Probably
weeks.
2 weeks out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
So it's funny, Dan, as I was looking through kind of this news that came out this week about games, it seemed to be a lot up your alley, including this one. So I know you're probably pumped about this one. My only problems with the first one with Jedi, Fallen Order. I mean, all of us hated the map. It's the worst map ever created in video games, I think. But my big thing coming, especially as a Souls player, was the level design. I didn't like the kind of small, closed-off levels that were kind of confusing. They just weren't really well designed. From what I can see so far in the videos of Jedi Survivor, it definitely looks bigger, broader, and giving the player more traversal kind of skills. So I'm hoping that that's feedback they've taken to heart. If they kind of keep the core mechanics of the first one, open up the world a bit, let you explore a bit more, increase the kind of variety of the combat, this is going to be a monster game, guys. A monster.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Good Star Wars games. It's been so long.
Yeah,
It's
I
been
mean, since the last one, basically.
probably since the last one,
I
right?
do not
Star
count
Wars
Lego
Squadrons
Marvel.
didn't do great.
Yeah, Lego Star Wars.
Lego
Oh.
Star Wars.
Trash.
Oh, Travis is about to get you.
Yeah.
Then we got the announcement from 2K and Lego about 2K Drive, Lego 2K Drive, which is coming out May 19th and looks to be essentially like a fully featured game that was the Lego expansion for Forza Horizon 4. The early previews have said it's like a mix of open world Burnout and Mario Kart. So take that as you will. It looks like just kind of this open world Lego racing game that you can build, you can create, you can make boats, vehicles, what have you, and I guess have fun in your Lego racing world.
Yeah, I like Mario Kart. I like Burnout. I hate Lego. So
who hates Lego?
Me. I'm not a huge fan of Lego, man. I mean,
You
at least
stepped on
like
one.
games. Yeah, I mean,
I don't think I've ever in my life heard someone say I hate Lego.
I mean, I just don't. I don't care for it. I guess it could be a nicer way of saying it. I mean, it's just, it's Lego.
He stepped on a Lego brick once, 10 years ago.
He's never let it go.
Put him in the hospital for 3 weeks. He's never forgiven them.
Listen, I mean, maybe when I was younger, it was fine. You know, I had Legos.
You were young?
Yeah, one time.
Oh,
yeah. Back when we hunted with spears and rocks.
You look like that. You look like the original man, the first one to stand on its hind legs.
Thanks.
His favorite Far Cry is Primal.
Yeah. Is that real?
No.
That would make sense.
Come on.
That would make sense.
You know what I have? You know what though? Just like
makes you feel nostalgic.
I was just playing Far Cry 5 right before this because they just released like a 60 FPS update.
They did.
I was like,
yeah.
oh man, yeah. So
Far Cry 6 is better.
Now I know why Dan hates Lego. It's because his pet dodo choked on one and died. And now
it was the last one.
It was the last one.
Dodo.
No.
All right. So let's see. That's May 19th. Then the game that's seemingly been in development forever. Lord of the Rings Gollum. We got a story trailer for this week. It comes out a week later on May 25th.
That game has Travis review written all over it. Written all over it. Let me tell you.
That would be right before Diablo as well, like a week before Diablo.
Well, when does it come out? Because I would get the code.
It's May 25th, so you figure Diablo probably mid-May, third week of May for reviews. So, yeah, it's right in that timeline.
I'm requesting it right now.
Well, the thing I want to ask you guys, you might not have had a chance to see it or didn't see it, but the trailer they released this week was a 2-minute story trailer, and I watched it, and it looks like they're taking Gollum. They're trying to make this where Gollum is more, I won't say down to earth, but where you feel more emotionally attached to Gollum and his journey. And it definitely looks like it has some story beats that are aiming to be more, I don't know the word, deep or realistic than I was expecting from the game. So I don't know where this is going to land. It's coming out at the worst possible time. In between major releases. Does this game stand a chance at all? I mean, it's Lord of the Rings, so you can't downplay the IP strength, but still,
because it's not the Lord of the Rings. It's one stupid character that nobody really cares about. He was he served his purpose. I don't care about his backstory. When they showed it in the movie where he
backstory is really interesting, actually.
Don't care. It
was his birthday, Dan.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
It was his birthday.
It's going to fall flat on its face. It's been in development for what, like 22 years. So it's I don't know. Be smarter. Make another. You know what? WB or whoever's doing this thing, is it WB's doing this? Is that the same?
It is. I forget who's developing actually.
They're publishing it. I mean, I was just assumed so because
it would have to be WB.
They did the other Lord of the Rings games, didn't they?
Yeah, I think WB is publishing. I forget who the dev is.
Yeah, I don't know, but they've got the Nemesis system. And 2 fantastic games that
the Nemesis system.
I love the Nemesis system.
Yeah, it's
it was fantastic.
They copyrighted it.
Yeah, but now we get a story. Maybe it's a stealth game that man.
By the way, this is being published not by them. It's Daedalic Entertainment and Nacon. So Nacon, you know, who has gotten into the publishing realm. They're publishing like RoboCop and stuff. Daedalic Entertainment Group is developing.
I can care less, to be honest. I mean, it's one of those, like, out of everything that's coming out, this is the one that I'm like, yeah, hard pass. You know,
well, that's why like
Andy Serkis is not doing Gollum's voice in this game.
That's even worse. You just like knocked it down another peg. Yeah, it's bad.
Maybe they'll get the guy from the original. Maybe they'll get the guy from the original Hobbit cartoon. Remember that one?
No.
The guy who's like, if you've never seen this, do yourself a favor, watch the Hobbit cartoon, because that is the original version of Gollum. So Andy Serkis, he really went on a limb, because here's the cartoon's Gollum. You want the precious? You need the precious. I'm not joking. That's what he sounds like. That's what he sounds like in the cartoon. That was the OG Gollum. And so in my head, when they were making the Lord of the Rings movie, I was like, is Gollum just going to be some like weird Nordic like weirdo? And Andy Serkis, you know, he chose a direction, and now everyone assumes that that's what Gollum has.
That's what Gollum
like.
is remembered as. Yeah,
it's because
exactly. But he wasn't the original. It is good, exactly. Yeah. But yeah,
well, those movies are legendary. But yeah, it's funny. Elu says in the chat, it's a good analogy. He says, "Remember that Friends spinoff show, Joey? No, it's because it's taking one character, you know, out from an established group and making a successful entity based solely on that one character is quite rare." It's a good shout out. Yeah. Especially like the least, I wouldn't say least important, but lesser important character in that. To Dan's point, I think is Gollum is not really why you remember the Lord of the Rings movies.
No.
So. All right.
Well, it is for some people. Some people really like that character.
Well, they'll enjoy the game then. Good for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will. I don't know if they will. But I will tell you this. I'm going to request to review that game, because I have to know.
May 25th. So Godspeed to you, sir. We got a updated trailer for Final Fantasy 16, looking at the world of Valistea, I believe that's pronounced. Some really incredible settings and graphics shown off here. So this game continues to confound me. It's coming out June 22nd was the release date.
What game is this?
Final Fantasy 16.
Oh.
I thought it was originally at the end of May, so I don't know if this was announcing like a 1 week delay or if my memory's just not serving me properly. But regardless, I can't tell where this is going to land for me. Obviously, Final Fantasy, it's going to be a huge release, but for me personally, we'll have to see how it delivers. But the worlds, what it showed in this 2-minute kind of world overview was gorgeous, really stunning. So, one of the seemingly biggest announcements of the week, you could argue the biggest announcement of the week, is Valve announcing Counter-Strike 2, which is a direct upgrade to CSGO, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which released in 2012.
Wow.
And continues to be one of the most played and most streamed games in the world. And in fact, after this announcement, GDC week, it broke its own record of 1.5 million concurrent players on Steam, which is just bonkers. If you know anything about, concurrent player counts on Steam, it's nuts. So this is I personally don't get it. Counter-Strike does nothing for me. It's that style of shooter, and it looks and feels very antiquated. Yeah, it's a very precise, competitive shooter. It's kind of what Rainbow Six Siege attempted to model after a little bit, in the sense of the one shot, one kill, kind of peeking corners, very precise with everything you do. And there's a big audience for it. But whether or not you are interested in Counter-Strike, I would highly recommend checking out the 3 videos Valve released around how they're advancing the technology of the game. There's some really, really impressive stuff here, including networking and how they're dealing with online play, which is really cool.
The bullets through the smoke thing was pretty cool.
Very cool.
That was very awesome. I mean, other than that, there's no chance in hell I ever touch this game. So, but my son likes it. My son's he's I want to say he likes playing that when he's not playing Destiny. So,
okay,
but he's not like a pro player by any means.
I love that both of you guys are cursed with children.
Yes.
who love Destiny.
Yeah.
And then you have to have me on the show talking about Destiny.
Our other
the
child.
same thing that
Your other
what's his
child
face did. Yeah. I mean, it was he bought the 2 character path things or whatever for $20 a piece.
Oh, the old upgrades.
Yeah, he's just like, no, I'm not doing this again.
Wow.
So
he
my
paid
stepson loves
$40
Destiny.
of your money.
Yeah. No. That's his money.
Okay.
My stepson loves Destiny, and my son loves League of Legends. Neither game I honestly couldn't care less about either of those games.
You know what will make you care about League of Legends, or at least respect it more? Watch, and this is just a recommendation in general. Everybody should go watch the show called Players.
Okay.
It's great. It is a mockumentary from the makers of American Vandal that follows a fictional esports team that plays League of Legends. And
I think you've mentioned this before.
I think I mentioned it before on the show. It is one of the funniest things. Everybody should watch this show. Super underrated. I think you can watch it on Amazon, but I think it's a Paramount Plus show. But everyone should watch it. It's
Players.
It's so good. It's like 10 episodes. It's really tight. It's great storytelling. The people that made American Vandal are some of my favorite creators because I just love the mockumentary style. It's so fun. And if you watch that with your son, like that would be the perfect way to bond with him over that because it's fantastic. It's very good. Whoever Michael JM, it is extremely good. You should watch it.
Okay. All right. Good recommendation. Yeah. The other funny thing that happened this week was Tony Todd, who is a famous actor. If you don't know who Tony Todd is, he played the original Candyman. He obviously wasn't kind of either thinking or, just kind of, I don't even know what was going on in his head, but he posted this week that responding to just a simple fan comment on Twitter, he responded and said that, yes, Insomniac and Sony have told him that the big PR push for Spider-Man 2 begins in August, and the game is planning a September release, which he obviously didn't realize that none of that information is public at this point in time. And he quickly walked it back, made a joke out of it. But apparently he is playing Venom or voicing Venom in Spider-Man 2. And so now we know there's been a lot of speculation around when Spider-Man 2 was supposed to release. It seems like the plan is September, which would mean, of course, that September will bring both Spider-Man 2 and Starfield.
See, I said that last week. That's what we were talking about.
You did say that last week, and I said November. I thought no way in hell Spider-Man 2 releases that early, but there we go.
They don't care about Starfield because they know that IP is going to crush whatever.
No, I meant development.
No,
I thought they would take as long.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's a sequel. Development cycle on sequels are pretty tight.
Yeah.
So
plus Insomniac, they're just magicians with basically whatever they touch. I mean, out of several, out of the games I play, I mean, they're one of my favorite developers just because they seem to kill it every time. With Ratchet and Clank, with that last Spider-Man, even Infamous. It's just they're just good.
Calm down on Infamous. I mean, it's
even
okay.
Sunset Overdrive. You love that game.
There you go. Yeah, great game.
It's fine, but they're really good.
Sucker Punch though.
But, Sucker Punch was Infamous. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You meant Resistance, which is great.
Resistance, right? Yeah. I mean, they're just really good. So I mean,
Resistance are good games, man. I still want Resistance back. Part of what I dislike about Insomniac now is because of the success of Spider-Man. I don't feel like we're going to get a Resistance anytime soon again.
Well, they're just becoming Marvel guys, right? Like they're also making Wolverine. And...
And it's because of people like Dan. You know what I mean? Killing our original game.
I like those games too. I like those games too. They're fun.
Spider-Man's fine. It's all right. I really don't care.
I'm
one of the few who doesn't care when it releases because I don't even care to play it.
Oh, you're not going to play it? Wow.
Spider-Man 2. I'll play it eventually, but I'm not hyped for it. I don't care about the game really.
I like Spider-Man. He speaks to me. Something about a nerdy guy who doesn't always come up short in life. Suddenly being able to take power into his own hands and help the people he cares about. Something about that just speaks to me.
He's the everyday Spider-Man guy, right? He's the everyman is what he is.
He's the every nerd.
I honestly think that's why I probably don't like Spider-Man as much. I liked him as a kid. I watched the classic cartoon all the time. But the fact that it's not dark enough for me. I like the darker stuff. I'd much rather have a Punisher game. Family murdered
I would love that too.
and go start killing criminals.
Yeah.
Come on. Revenge. That's what I
I'm
need.
I'm like the opposite. Like I'm not like everybody loves Batman, right? I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, I like the games and stuff. I've just never understood really the fascination with the character. I mean,
Really?
there's 18 different versions of him. It always seems like. So I'm not sure which one is the real one. But growing
Batman,
up,
I mean, he's rich dude, parents murdered, becomes a vigilante.
There's some pretty consistent stuff, unless
He's a
you're talking
rich
about
Punisher.
Batman Beyond.
Is what he is.
That's it.
Well, Punisher murders people. Batman doesn't.
This is why Punisher is superior.
Yeah,
My God. Yeah.
take that.
Let's all come out for murder here on this podcast. Pumpkin patch. Pumpkin patch. Get me off the show. Pumpkin patch.
But I like Wolverine too, so I am very curious. I'm much more excited to see what Insomniac does with Wolverine than Spider-Man 2.
Well, hopefully they do him justice because he deserves it. Since
Yeah.
he's never really had a decent game out yet. So, but yeah. If for some reason in the same day Spider-Man 2 launches with Starfield, I mean, for me, there's no question where I'll be playing because I feel like even at the worst, the worst thing, Starfield will be better in about 2 or 3 months, regardless. So not that I'll put that much time into Spider-Man, which I might. I don't know. It could happen.
Don't say such stupid things. You're going to make that 15-hour game like a 600-hour game. You
Probably. Here's what I want from Spider-Man 2. No Mary Jane missions or missions where I have to play as somebody else and sneak around stuff. That's the dumbest.
No variety. Dan says no variety.
No, I don't need it. I got Miles. I got Peter. That's all I need. I'm good. We'll be good to go. We don't need anybody else.
You've got Miles and
Those
Peter.
are terrible levels in those games.
Literally making me fall asleep.
The worst.
Just don't care.
All right.
Well, that's good though, because that means you'll be playing Spider-Man. I'll be playing Starfield, and we can talk about both of them. Travis will probably be playing both. It works.
Yeah.
We'll play both.
Yep. Oh, I'm going to
I
be
play
playing
everything.
Starfield, don't get me wrong.
I play everything, including Gollum, probably. We'll see.
I hope so. The other one, the last thing I wanted to mention is, which was reported by Polygon, is that a game on The Last Ronin is in development. The Last Ronin was published in 2020 as a 5-issue miniseries comic. Takes place in a futuristic New York where 3 of the 4 Ninja Turtles have been killed. The surviving turtle, whose identity is revealed at the end of the comic series, so obviously we won't spoil it, dons a black mask and seeks revenge by fighting crime using both his weapons and fallen brothers. And the game is supposedly inspired in design by the modern God of War. So we'll see. Obviously, if this,
it is.
and don't say it.
Of course not.
But yeah, this I could get into. I like the idea and concept of this. Of course, apparently it's early in development, and if you're talking about making a big budget game in the vein of God of War, we'll see you in 5 years, and I hope it goes well. Best of luck.
Yeah, so this comic series is a super weird departure from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's also really good. I've read it. I am interested to see if they can make it a good video game.
Sounds intriguing. Yeah, I wasn't aware of it until this news came out, but
it is also my favorite turtle, Big Mad. So
don't say that, because then we talk about turtles a lot. And now you're going to mention that. And there's probably a big cast where we were talking about like Shredder's Revenge, and you mentioned your favorite turtle.
I've never mentioned my favorite turtle. Guaranteed. Because you would judge me.
I would judge you. That means it's Raphael. You just spoiled it, because nobody has Raphael as their favorite.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it is. Nobody likes that one, so Travis loves it.
It's got to be. That's the hipster take, right, Dan? Like, he's going to be a Raphael guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reveal one way or another.
Oh, man. Ruined it. Though Chris Mullen in the chat just said my favorite is Raphael. We found your only partner in crime.
Yeah.
I never said Raphael's my favorite. I'm not revealing.
We just know. You don't need to. You said it enough, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Wouldn't you guys assume Donatello was my favorite because he's a nerd?
No, because Donatello is a lot of people's favorite because that's more of a cool choice.
Because
to be hipster, you have to go against the grain. So,
So what's your problem with Raph?
I have no problem with Raph.
No.
It's just I'd never hear people
just got
saying
done
he's their
dumping
favorite.
on him forever. I mean,
No. Nothing. Nobody.
Look at that,
nobody
Jason.
likes-
And who uses size? I mean, come on.
It's the
Stop
worst.
yes, the series is good. You should definitely read it.
Come on.
Oh man. All right. So I think that'll go ahead and wrap us up for today, boys. It's been a fun show. By the way, our poll over on the Season Gaming channel, 76 votes. Which is better, Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 4? It looks like Resident Evil 2 with a slight victory, 57% of the vote compared to 43% for Resident Evil 4. So
That's
very close, but thank you for voting. Guys, it's been awesome. Chat, as always, love simulcasting on both channels over here. I will, of course, shout out if you are visiting us from Hoeg's channel. Hopefully you enjoy yourself. Thank you for supporting his channel. Why, luckily enough, he was able to hang out with us for about half the show today. But thank you as always, and just thank yous all around. If you do have a moment, your support, just to click on the Season Gaming side and give us some support over there would be greatly appreciated as well. And to all our audio listeners, we hope the kind of more streamlined experience is better for you, and the mics were better this week as well. So keep us posted on that. But from Season Gaming side, I want to shout out someone that we met from from Hoeg's channel, Sardinisms, who is a regular over there in his videos and chat. She has done a couple guest pieces for Season Gaming now. She put up her most recent guest piece, Travis, which I think you may be interested in because it relates to live service delivery in terms of story content and how they incentivize playing specific aspects of live service content. She used Genshin Impact as her example, but she speaks to a few of that, so you may like that. That's up on the site. And then, of course, as Travis and I already said, my article on Diablo 4 and my thoughts in comparison to the prior Diablos and what it means today is up on the site. You can check that out as well. So thank you very much. Travis, go ahead and shout it out, man.
Yeah, you can also read my Diablo 4 review in progress beta impressions on IGN.com, or you can watch the YouTube video wherein I accidentally called Lilith the Lord of Hatred instead of the Daughter of Hatred, and people have never let me live that down.
That's Mephisto. Do you know anything about?
I know Mephisto is the Lord of Hatred. I wrote it right in my written version. In the audio version, I slipped up on the VO, and everybody.
As long as you didn't mention pumpkins while talking about it, you're probably fine.
I didn't talk about pumpkins, no.
Okay.
So yeah, you can watch the video on YouTube, and then this week I'm going to be coming out with a separate article, or maybe updating the original article, and then a separate video to talk about the second weekend open beta. And then that'll probably be the last time you hear from me until I have the retail copy a couple weeks before embargo lifts, before the game comes out. So I will likely be moving on and working on other reviews, and then I'll circle back to Diablo when the time comes. But yeah, you can see that online. You can see my GDC coverage, including the game I talked about on this show, Crash Team Rumble. And I've got other content coming out next week I can't talk about. And yeah, it's been a good run of lots of content on from me. Oh yeah. And then the last thing I want to shout out, Remnant 2, IGN First is ending this week. This past week we released 9 minutes of gameplay, including an entire boss fight, the Mothermind. And then next week my IGN First coverage is going to conclude on Wednesday, I believe, when I come out with my first hands-on preview. Actually, you know what?
Wait,
it's Monday. It's Monday. It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
So yeah, tomorrow morning, I will be able to talk about 80% of the stuff I saw when I was at Gunfire Games' office. And so I'm sure we'll talk about it on this show. That game is super cool, and you can look in my Twitter or just on IGN homepage tomorrow for my first preview of that game, which is an exclusive. I'm the only guy who's seen it in the media, which is cool. Yeah.
Cool. Fantastic. By the way, Big Man Mo just put up a member chat on the Season Gaming side. Just a reminder that sadly the member chats do not come through the StreamYard software, so I only see them if I happen to be looking at YouTube. He says, great show, nice surprise from Hogue, always good ains. When's the next cinematic for Halo, sir? Next cinematic for Halo will be once you beat the battle pass, it'll be at the end of the next firewall event. So whenever you complete that. Dan, will you like more than 2 games? Trav, keep being Trav. So just a shout out to all of us, really.
I will not. It's a no.
Thank you, Mo. All right, everyone. Thanks as always. I say the same thing every week, but just truly appreciate the support. Thanks for supporting both channels, supporting all of us, supporting Hogue in his recovery, and hanging out with us. It's always a good time. So until next Sunday, and stay tuned. Keep an eye on my Twitter. I will pick a day. I'll double down. I'll pick a day this week, sometime where I stream Romancylvania.
Hit me up. I wanna watch part of that or engage in some way.
Yeah, we'll see. So I'll see you then. Otherwise, everyone, have a good rest of the weekend. Have a good week. Peace.